Hello everyone, welcome to What If Issei Became the Angel of Death and Fell in Love with Gabriel Movie. Before we start, please go support Alessandro Gonzalez 54 for writing that awesome fanfic. This is the translated version I made. There will be some mistake in character's gender, but of course Issei is a male. Forgive him. He had no choice. He had to be a demon. We forced it on him, and now that he's free from this hell, we're trying to bring him back. But we have to let him rest. Prologue. Ano, are you hired to Issei? Hearing his name, he turned his face slightly and saw her standing there. It was a very pretty girl with long black hair tied in a ponytail, violet eyes, and her mom was nervous. If I am hired to Issei, tell me, what can I help you with? After answering the beautiful girl's question, she got a little nervous, and then she just started babbling. He acts terribly. Who taught this fool to act like that? He couldn't help but think about that. But before he could continue with his thoughts, the girl said something that left him completely, somewhat surprised. Please, go out with me. Hearing her scream, and then bowing, while waiting for Issei's response. What kind of idiot would agree to go out with someone who doesn't even know her? He must be completely stupid and extremely desperate. Pinching the tip of his nose, he then only slightly furrows his left eyebrow, then fixes his hair and looks at her. Well, I speak calmly. First of all, I don't even know your name, and second, I have no intention of going out with anyone. Thanks for your preparation, and I refuse to go out with you. I have no interest in going out with anyone at this time. After his statement, the girl opened her eyes slightly in surprise, and when she was about to say something, she saw how Issei turned around and began to walk away. Sayonara, strange. He had said goodbye, with his hand raised, and then simply left there. Meanwhile, the black-haired girl seemed very upset, then turned around and left there, while a girl with white hair came out of the bushes and had a lollipop in her hands. I have to tell Bucho about this, the girl murmurs, walking calmly towards his home, with his hands in his pockets and looking around with a bored face. Well, tell me, what are you going to do now? Asked a voice in his head. I thought you were asleep, Drake. I was, until then I felt the aura of a fallen angel, and you know why I wanted to talk to you. Well, she wanted to have a date with me, nothing more, but I rejected her. Do you think she found out you have me? Asked Drake. Issei shrugs, and then arrives at a small but comfortable house. Who knows? He replied without giving it any importance. Opening the door to his house, he then walked into the living room and sat down on one of the sofas. I see that I'm going to be alone again. Veil of Good, after all, you were always alone, after you revealed yourself just like Lucifer. He closed his eyes slightly, and then simply let out a heavy sigh. Don't remind me. Unlike me and my brother Lucifer, I didn't hate humanity, and I wasn't jealous of them. And tell me, why did you rebel? He was about to answer, but then the doors opened and two adults entered along with a girl the same age as Issei. We finally arrived home, said the older woman with brown hair. Yes, at the end of several months we were finally able to return to Koh, said the brown-haired man. For their part, the family put several suitcases inside while Issei simply sighed in boredom, and then just closed his eyes to try to get some sleep. On a battlefield, where it could be noticed, full of dead bodies, then in the middle of this battlefield there were three people in the center. One was a man with silver hair, pale skin, blue eyes, who looked in front of him at an elderly man all bloody, and between them was a teenager with gray hair. My children, it is enough. Many lives were lost after this stupid war, the man said, looking at both of them. Shut up, you damn old man. It was the angry cry of the silver-haired man, who looked at the man furiously, while the gray-haired teenager looked at him. This was seriousness. Lucifer, stop this. How many more innocent lives will you put at risk for your stupid whim? Whisper, you say. You have no idea of how I feel. Let's see how your favorite creation is in this world, which was once a paradise, is now a disgusting one. They are a mistake that you created them. Lucifer shouted with rage. Son, the man spoke with pain. That's enough of this, Lucifer. But he could not continue speaking because Lucifer had lost his head to the teenager who had an Oz in his hand. To the surprise of all the angels who were around, and some demons as fallen angels had seen the death of his brother/king/father at the hands of the teenager who was standing with his Oz in his hands. The man looked directly at where the teenager was, where he saw his face was covered in Lucifer's blood. Azrael. The teenager looked at the man in front of him, and simply wiped the blood from his face and looked at the man. Father. Hearing him called, the teenager man looked at him, straight into his eyes. Azrael. Why? The man asks. I thought you wanted to stop this, right? Or are you upset that your favorite son was murdered? His eyes flashed dangerously as he looked at the man in front of him, who remained silent. I never thought that you would kill your own brother. Huh? It seems you still don't understand, father. Understand what? That you killed Lucifer, you killed hundreds and hundreds of innocent lives, just because? For power, son, is that why you joined Lucifer in his revolution? To sow chaos and create demons? Azrael would look behind him where he could see the entire army of demons, behind him letting out a sigh. He raised his index finger upwards where a dark energy began to form and then took the shape of a ball. Everyone quickly stood on guard ready to attack. But what he did surprised everyone present was when he turned around and launched his attack directly towards the demons. Gaha! Kaya, women, men and everyone who was in that attack, whether angels or fallen, all ended up dying from Azrael's attack. Without leaving any demon alive, he looked ahead and saw the surprised and terrified faces of some of those who were there. What? They were demons. Everyone was simply amazed at how calm he was when he said that, and then they just watched as he took a few steps away from the man who was on high guard. Tell me, father, there's something I've been wanting to know for quite some time, and that is, why didn't you finish this? After Azrael's question, the simple man remained silent. What? What is it you want to tell me? He didn't understand his son's words. Letting out a sigh, Azrael looked at the man in front of him, and just lunged at the man, and suddenly the whole place turned white. Opening his eyes slightly, Issei realized he was still sleeping on the couch, but he was actually lying down. Chapter 1. Heading to the Hayate Issei Academy, he walked calmly. It was very early, but he still decided to go out, since he didn't feel like being with his family. Upon reaching the entrance, he saw a group of people already arriving early, but he just ignored everything and simply walked towards his classroom. Good morning, Hayate-san. Hearing his name, he turned his face slightly and found a certain person. He had short black hair, violet eyes, glasses, a decent body, small breasts and good legs, in addition to his cold gaze. Shirtorai-san. The one in front of her was Sauna Shirtorai, the student council president. I see that this time you decided to go to school on time. Can I know this? Putting his hands behind his head, he looked at the girl in front of him without any expression. Nothing interesting. I just woke up early. And I decided to come there early. Any problem? Issei said. Sona shook her head. No problem. Hayate-san, you can go back to your classroom. I understand. See you, Kaicho. Didance turned around and said goodbye, and then simply walked away, while another girl with black hair, but with a better figure, stood next to the girl. Something happens, Kaicho? After the girl's question, Sauna simply let out a sigh and then adjusted her glasses. No, Tsubaki, you don't have to worry, replied Sauna. While with the brown-haired boy he walked calmly towards his living room ignoring everyone, then he crossed paths with two extremely beautiful people. A beautiful woman with long black hair and great attributes, and the other was a woman with crimson hair and light blue eyes. Their eyes met where the girl, with crimson hair, put on a small smile, and then they both continued on their way. MMH, could she be her daughter? Turning around, he saw the redhead turn down another hallway. Letting out a sigh, he continued towards his classroom, then walked past it towards his seat. Your hair? I know I've seen it somewhere, but where? Trouble in Paradise? Drake had spoken. Mockingly, this being ignored by the brown-haired boy. Drake, I see you saw everything, right? Yes, but it's very boring to be at school, so I'll go to sleep. Wake me up when something interesting happens. After that, the dragon cut off his communication, where the brown-haired man let out a sigh. Lazy dragon. After several hours of classes, Issei was walking home, this time passing through the park since it was the only path that left him close to his house. Humph? Now there are 3, not 4 down, counting her. He took a breath and continued walking a little further until the entire sky turned purple, where the brown-haired boy stopped his steps. Right in front of him was the same girl he rejected yesterday. And here we go again. Oh, I see, it's you. Is something wrong? Issei asked with false ignorance, looking at the girl who gave him a withering look, then put on a proud and somewhat sadistic smile, causing a grimace of disgust from Issei. Good afternoon, Issei-kun. Why are all the fallen angels so arrogant when they are too weak? Phew. Letting out a mental sigh, he looked at the girl in front of him who seemed to be happy about something. You know something, Issei-kun, no one had ever rejected me. Before you know, I thought about having fun with you, Then if you accepted to go on a date with me, but I was given orders to kill you after the date. After that her body was covered by a glow where 2 black wings emerged. Her body grew more, her breasts also grew, and her appearance changed to a more mature one. Her outfit now consists of black leather straps around and under her breasts. She has gloves that reach almost to her shoulders with chains of small lengths hanging from them. She has black shoulder pads. One of the shoulder pads, the right one, has 3 large spikes. She also has black high-heeled boots that reach up to her thighs. Or is it just me who likes to be an exhibitionist? Drake couldn't help but ask. He is much younger. I think he must be between 17 and 18 years old, and his aura is completely mixed. He is half fallen angel and half human, and I know this aura. Issei didn't seem scared at all, seeing the young fallen angel in front of him, something that was noticed by her. From what I see, you are not afraid of dying, human. That makes me think that our leader was right. You possess a sacred gear, which could be a danger to us, in that she created a spear of light in her hands, and then threw it at him at great speed, but Issei pointed his finger forward where the spear was stopped to her surprise. As she gave a cry of surprise, but Issei only limited himself to slightly twisting his hand, and then just snapping his fingers, and the spear of light was destroyed. Though that was a disappointment. Hearing Issei's comment, she got angrier and created 2 more spears. Don't get arrogant, she screamed, extremely angry, while she threw 2 spears of light at him. Issei's eyes shone, and at that same instant he had simply moved at great speed, where the spears of light collided and created a small explosion. Let me tell you something, fallen angel. Hearing Issei's voice behind her, she quickly turned around and wanted to walk away, but it was too late because Issei had grabbed her by the neck. To her surprise, she couldn't move because of his grip. You little nuisance, tell me who sent you? I asked seriously. Rot. She would not allow herself to be lowered before him. She had her pride, a rather great pride, despite being subdued by this. Human, Issei simply denied this, and then he gave his hand, and when he was about to kill her, he let go of her neck and turning quickly caught 2 spears of light with his bare hands. Rainier, a beautiful woman with long blue hair, yellow eyes, a large body, extremely tall, and a large butt, and she was wearing a secretary suit, quickly descended and stood next to her. Calaworn? Quick, stand up there. I'm going to help Donasek and Middlet. Upon hearing what Calaworn said, she looked in front of her, and there she saw how Issei was dodging the attacks with great ease from both fallen angels. Yuri's still just as weak, Donasek. You always thought you were better than others when in reality you were just a child, with airs of greatness. In a quick movement, Issei stepped past the blonde-haired girl and appeared in front of the only man standing in front of him. That? He screamed in surprise, and it was at that very moment that Issei hit him hard in the abdomen, causing him to spit saliva, and then without wasting another minute, Issei grabbed him by the neck and slammed him into the ground. Even with the years, you don't learn anything, Donasek. You're still the same shit. Even when you were in heaven, you never showed yourself to be more than mere garbage. The fallen angel's eyes opened wide, but before he could say anything, Issei had released him from his neck, and without wasting time he took him by the arm and then put it in front of him, using it as a shield where an explosion was generated, where a small smoke screen had been generated. Do you think we hit him? No, Middlet is still standing. Rainier, prepare yourself anyway, Middlet. After Calaworn's order, they created spears of light ready to attack, but then they saw Donasek's body fall dead on the ground. She quickly looked in front of her, and there came Issei walking calmly with his hands in his pockets, and passing over the body of the angel of death under his feet. His gaze turned to the group of fallen angels, who were still standing, but his sight focused, certainly on the blue-haired girl. If the teacher falls, the student also falls with her, he thought as he looked directly at the blue-haired woman. Do you know her? Unfortunately, I do know her. Her name is Calaworn. She used to be a lower-ranking angel, and she was my little sister. But before he continued his talk, several spears of light hit him, creating an explosion. Shall we kill him? Rainier asks. I doubt a human like him would survive that. What do you think, Kala? Kala? Said Middlet. For her part, the mature woman looked at the place where Issei was standing before and then just spoke. Yes, I think so. What do you think? Tell me, are you really worried about that human? Because he only killed Donasek? Middlet wasn't thinking about that. He was thinking about his first moves he used against Rainier to stop her spears of light, and then, how he took the spears from behind with his bare hands. Calawarn said seriously. Kala is right, Middlet. That human was very powerful. We were overconfident that we lost one of our own. Ryanair said seriously. MVP is fine. It will be better to go. Where do you think they're going? They all opened their eyes in surprise, then looked at the place where Issei was, and there they saw some gray feathers falling to the ground. Little by little the smoke screen began to dissipate, where they saw several dull gray wings, where Calawarn changed his expression to one of panic when he saw those wings and took a step back in fear. No, I can't be. How? Seeing the state of their friends, both Middlet and Ryanair looked ahead and saw the gray wings. When the smoke screen had finished dissipating, there they saw him standing. His hair, which was once brown, changed to gray. His eyes stopped being brown and changed to light blue. His tan skin became pale, and now he was much taller and thinner. Calawarn's face was one of pure terror as he saw the person in front of him. Azrael. After mentioning the name, both Middlet and Ryanair opened their eyes in surprise, but Issei simply dedicated himself to putting on a smile. It's been a while, Calawarn, or should I say little sister. Chapter 2. In what looked like a bedroom, a gray-haired boy could be seen sitting on a kind of throne with his legs crossed, also holding a sword in his hands. I think we all know why we are here, right? An elderly man with white hair and a long beard spoke. Yes, father. They all responded while the gray-haired teenager simply rolled his eyes, then let out a sigh. This meeting is pathetic, Fa. Letting out a deep mental sigh, he simply waited for the meeting to end. After about half an hour, each and every one of them began to leave that room, while the boy was walking calmly. Azrael, wait. MMHP? He turned his face slightly. He saw a boy almost his same age with blonde hair, short light green eyes, and he was wearing a battle suit. What's up, Michael? I saw you today at the meeting, which was set up for the upcoming fight, and I noticed that you weren't paying attention, because of what Lucifer was doing in heaven. Michael said seriously, looking at Azrael. For his part, the gray-haired one simply rolled his eyes and then looked at him. Michael, I don't care what Lucifer is planning, it's not my problem. If it causes a rebellion, he said unimportantly. This annoyed Michael, who took it from the man and then smashed it against the wall. How can you say that? Answer me? Don't you care what might happen in heaven? What about all our brothers? Azazel, Penemu, Kokabil, Barakiel, Metatron, Uriel, Raphael, and above all our sister Gabriel. What will happen to them? Do you think I care what happens to them, Michael? To be honest, I care very little. You all may be my older brother and all, but remember something, Michael, there's a reason I'm the third strongest archangel in heaven. Azrael's eyes glowed crimson, while Michael's eyes glowed light blue. Their auras began to increase. But before they could continue with this, someone else interfered. Hoo, guys, why don't you leave that for the battlefield? A male voice with some amusement said, while both separate, and then slightly turned their faces, and there they see a man with black hair with blonde streaks accompanied by two beautiful women with great bodies. One of them had purple hair and extremely pale skin, and then the other was blonde, almost identical to Michael, only with longer hair. Azazel, Penemu, and Gabriel, what are you doing here? Asks Michael. For his part, Azrael separated from Michael, who stared at him. Next time you won't have any luck, brother. And with that, Azrael walked past everyone, while Michael stayed behind with his other brothers. Are you fighting against Azrael, Michael, again? Asked the purple-haired woman. You know how they are both Penemu-chan. They never got along. Just like with Lucifer-chan, they always clashed with each other, said the blonde with a smile. As long as both of us are destroyed, I agree with you, Gabriel. But it would be better to go. We have to prepare for tomorrow, said Penemu. Both women walk away, leaving only Azazel and Michael, who remained silent for a few moments. Tell me something, Azazel. Do you think Azrael will reveal himself too? Michael asked. For his part, Azazel remained silent for a few moments while he watched the place where Azrael had gone. Honestly, I have no idea, Michael. I hope I don't want to fight him. I'm not strong enough, hee. Well, let's get out of here now, Azazel. After that, both of them left that place, without looking back. While in the room, there was someone watching the whole event that had occurred. Everything was chaos in the city. The battle had begun. The angels themselves fought against those they had once considered their brothers. The war was violent. Much death, while in the fields of Eden there were large quantities of bodies, all mutilated. The clash of their own weapons was forceful explosions, screams of pain, tearing, especially the deaths. What was once a paradise was now a bloodbath. Hundreds and hundreds of Delos were falling in heaps, while a group of what appeared to be cavalry was fighting and killing everyone without any mercy. Finish them all, those who oppose our goals, let them all be annihilated. Yes, Lucifer! It was the cry of all the soldiers who began to make their advance, killing everyone, without mercy, while Lucifer smiled at seeing all the chaos he had created. And just as he was about to enter the next place, a deep glow was generated across the sky, and then there he saw 4 figures in armor were flying in the skies. Lucifer simply spread his wings, and being followed by 3 more, they quickly went to face the others. Arriving in front of the other 4, both small groups stared at each other. Brothers, I don't want to do this. I don't want to fight against you. You saw that when you saw him thinking, a long time before Lucifer, before causing this, pointing out the entire battlefield and the various followers they had, while some angels were forming up ready for battle. You don't understand, right, brother? I'm doing this for all of us. How can it be that we angels are the ones who protect those monkeys? Said Lucifer. They're wild and they destroy each other because, Tell me why we have to look out for their well-being when they don't even pray, but rather to the other pagans who believe themselves to be superior beings. Lucifer, an angel, you cannot be like the Almighty. Repent and beg God for forgiveness. I am the angel urged by God, Michael, and I will ascend to the highest place, and I will be like him. Silence! And with that shout Michael attacked Lucifer, who was unable to react in time, and where the entire army would begin the fight. On a throne you could see God watching all this from the top, the battle, and next to him was Azrael watching the fight between Michael and Lucifer. You won't interfere, Father? No, Azrael, Lucifer has already committed his mission. He has planted the seed of doubt in everyone. The angels, just like now, in our army there are many with doubts. Azrael simply looked at the battle site that was forming below, and then walked towards the edge. Are you going to battle? Asks Elohim. Azrael didn't respond, he simply let himself fall into the void, and then spread his wings. The battle was brutal and wild. The angels who were with Lucifer had their wings begin to change, their feathers began to fall, their wings became darker and took a very different shape this time to those of a bat. The angels who were still with Elohim still kept their wings, white as they killed each and every one of them. The battle began to be won by the army of heaven. While Michael and Lucifer were both locked in a true clash of titans, everything around them was completely destroyed. Neither of them holding back, they continued their clashes. Lucifer's wings stopped being pure white and changed to black. With a bat shape, his skin changed to pale, and his eyes took on a darker color. Michael attacked, and Lucifer was now blocking his attacks, who without any other option would use his magic. But what Lucifer did not take into account was the attack that came from his back. Ah! Grunting in pain, where 2 of his wings fell to the ground, that's when Michael took advantage and gave him several cuts all over Lucifer's body. Making his spear appear, he knocked Lucifer to the ground and then pointed his spear at his neck. You're no longer welcome in heaven, devil, Michael said coldly, and then Lucifer was thrown to the earth, where he fell to the end of heaven, this being seen by Azrael, who is with his wings spread. Present, both Calaworn and Rainier were on their knees, as was Middle, who was trembling, and in front of them was the only person who is completely more powerful than them. He walked over to where the blue-haired girl was, then knelt down, while she was trembling in fear. I see that it's been a month, huh? A smile appeared on his face. How long has it been since we last saw each other? She was trembling with fear, as she began to cry, being seen by the other fallen angels. Yar, what will I do with you and your Calaworn friends now? Chapter 3. Do you know if you don't say who sent you after me, and how do you know I had a sacred gear? And especially because they wanted to kill me, maybe I let you return to your base. This was said by Issei, who was sitting on a bench in the park, and in front of him 3 girls who were trembling with fear, while they were on their knees. But none, he replied, making Issei let out a sigh of annoyance. It must be someone higher up, for them to be so scared. Although who would be the idiot to send them right here? Right into demon territory. Thinking about who could have seen them sent to them, Issei simply looked at them once more and then stood up, making the girls stiffen. Hey you, who is your father, since I feel that you are half fallen angel and half human? He asked while looking at Rainier, who didn't know how to answer, while Issei stood with his arms crossed waiting for the answer. I'm still waiting for the answer, he said in a colder tone. And my father is Azazel. He is the leader of Grigori. Closing his eyes slightly, he began to think about everything, First, it is strange that Azazel is in love with another person for him. Of course, it is a fact that he was at that moment, when he fell for having impure thoughts, with his sister Gabriel, since he is deeply in love with her. But there was something that was bothering Issei. Seriously, he lets his own daughter wear that way. What's wrong with that idiot? Now I'll really give him a good lesson for letting my niece wear that. He was clearly upset to see his niece wearing a dominatrix outfit. First, you see that I see that you are up to something, by getting into the supernatural, and that you have been ignoring them for several years. Issei simply sighed and looked at Rainier, and then turned his gaze towards Calaworn, who didn't even bother to look at him. Calaworn, look at my face when I'm talking to you. Calaworn was afraid. She slowly began to raise her gaze, and there she saw him, directly into the eyes of her older brother. Azrael. Issei raises his hand as if saying stop, to which Calaworn simply remained silent. I told you to look at me, not to talk to me. I didn't give you that right, so you can talk, and for whatever I want most for your stupid life, tell me who sent you, and what their purpose is, and I want to know everything now. Issei had practically ordered Calaworn, his voice changing radically, to a deeper one. To which Calaworn simply nodded. It was first Azazel, who sent us to this place to investigate sacred gear users, and we tried to convince him, so that he joins Grigori as one of our agents. What a great job you do, Issei said with clear sarcasm in his words. But then we received an order directly from Kokabil, who told us that there was a user of a sacred gears, who could be dangerous for us, and that we were given the order to kill you. That was the direct order. So when they gave us the information, it was you, but we never knew that it was you, Azrael. I see. Taking his hand to his chin, he began to think. So that was it. Well, resting his sight on the fallen angels. You guys, go away, and I want you to go back to Grigori, and I want you to inform Azazel of everything, what you told me. But listen to me carefully, Calaworn. Calaworn would look at Issei. I don't want you and your companions to say anything that I'm. Do you understand? For now, I just want to keep it a secret. Understood, the three of them shouted. And one more thing, tell Azazel that in 2 days I will go to Grigori personally, and tell him to gather the rest of his leaders. Is that clear? As Issei said, the three women nodded and then left the place, in a magic circle until the barrier fell, where Issei simply shook the dust off his clothes. And then he simply turned around and began to walk away from that place very calmly. So you're going to visit later, huh? Strange of you for the sudden interest in seeing your brothers? Well, it wouldn't be bad. You should visit the family from time to time, don't you think, Drake? Besides, I want to know something. What Issei said left the dragon a little curious, but he stopped thinking about it and simply fell asleep. While in Koh Park, several magic circles appeared, and a large group of women appeared, and 2 blonde men were there as well. We couldn't get past the barrier. It was too difficult to get in. This was said by Hayato. Mikoto is a high school girl of average height who has a lean body structure. She has golden eyes and long white hair. Mikoto has shorter bangs and a small gathering of long hair that hangs down the front of her body. Mikoto has a relatively large bust size for her height. You're right, Mikoto-san, although it seems that there was a battle in this place. It was said by Akeno Himejima, one of the idols of Koh High School. Akeno is a voluptuous young woman of the same age as Mikoto with long black hair and violet eyes. Her hair is usually tied in a long ponytail that reaches her legs with 2 antennas protruding from the top that tilt back. You're right, Akeno, and it seems they were fallen angels. They faced something much more powerful, but the aura of the place seems to be sacred. This was said by Tsubaki Shinra. Tsubaki is a woman of 1.70 centimeters in height with black hair reaching more than halfway down her back. She has a heterochromic, open fringe and light brown eyes. She wears the Koh Academy uniform, although she also wears blue glasses, semi-framed with square lenses. What do you think about this, Sona? It was said by Rias Gremory. Rias is a beautiful woman with a very beautiful figure. Fair skin with almost greenish sky blue eyes and a characteristic crimson hair that reaches her thighs, with a single strand of horse, which in Japan is known as a hoge, or idiot hair, sticking out of the top of her head. She also has long bangs that, apart from covering part of her forehead, frames her face by being longer on the sides of it. MMHH, this is strange, because an angel and a fallen Alan facing each other in this place, right where we are, means that there may be problems in the future. Speaking in a serious tone, Sona is a young woman, apparently the same age as Rias, with short black hair and violet eyes. She wears a pair of red glasses and the distinctive school uniform of the girls of Kuoh Academy. It would be better to tell this to our brothers Rias. If there was a battle in this place precisely between the angels and the fallen, most likely another war will start," said Sona. The redhead nods in understanding. "Okay, it would be better to report this. Maybe Oni-sama can find out something." After that, both of them disappeared in some magic circles of the place without first cleaning everything, including the feathers of the place. Meanwhile, in a huge office you can notice a small group of people sitting around a circular table. What stands out most is that among them was a beautiful and sensual woman with purple hair, and in the front there was a man sitting with black hair with blonde locks, who seemed to be the leader. "Let me see if I understood correctly what you wanted to tell me." The man spoke very calmly. "You are telling me that you disobeyed my orders and attacked to kill a Sacred Gears user, and that without even knowing it, he decided to use it, and beat him up and then killed Issei, and above all, he will come personally to Grigori, and that he wants us to be present since he wants to talk?" "That's right, Azazel-sama. He said he wanted you all to be present to talk." It was said by Calaworn, "And now it not only seems that we have an enmity with a Sacred Gears user, but also that Kokabil is doing something behind your back, Azazel, and you up until now are not doing anything." Azazel for his part simply shrugged his shoulders at what was said by the woman of the group. "Well, do you have something else to say?" For their part, the three women look at each other, and then simply nod to each other. "Nothing else, that's what Calaworn said. You can leave, then I will see the punishment we will give you." The women simply nod at what was said by Azazel and then they leave. "Tell me, what do you think about this?" Azazel asked, looking at the rest. "For a mere human, he certainly has a lot of guts, I must admit, but I feel that something bad could happen at that meeting." Everyone who was there in the room also nodded, understanding what Betrayal had said. They themselves felt that this meeting would be something bad. It would be better to be prepared just in case. "Penemu, could you do me a favor and call Tobio and his team, and in case things really get out of control, call him?" Penemu nodded at what Azazel said. "What are we going to do with Kokabil?" Penemu asked, looking at Azazel. "For now, let him do what he wants. If things get out of control, I will personally send for him." What Azazel said made everyone look at him for a moment. "For now, let's just be attentive. This Sacred Gears user may be powerful. If he asks to have the meeting, and for us to be here, he must be very powerful and have one of the 13 long-legged warriors." "I'm speaking seriously, Azazel." Everyone just looked at Azazel. It was very rare for him to be serious about these various topics, since normally he is lazy and being relaxed, and seeing him serious meant that something bad would happen. Not for nothing he was the leader of Grigori. "Well, then we consider this meeting over." Getting up from his chair he nodded, followed by everyone else, "And I don't want anyone else to find out about this. If what Calaworn and the others said, it's possible that Kokabil has more spies, so Shimasai looks for those who might be working with him." "Understood, leave that to me," was what Shimasai said. Good. Nodding at his words, Azazel looked at the rest and Betrayal. "Stay alert on all the traitors, don't do anything yet." After that meeting, everyone else left the room, leaving only Azazel, who turns to his seat and then leans back in the back where he takes out a bottle of whiskey and begins to drink it. But then a magic circle formed in his hatred. This simple human heard everything, causing Azazel to simply stop drinking, and then, "What? Well, why did you call me Lucifer?" was what Azrael said, who was in front of a silver-haired man in the middle of a field. "Is it wrong to talk to my little brother?" This comment made Azrael frown slightly. "Now calm down. I didn't come to bother you too much. I just want to know how you've been." "I've been fine, thanks for asking, Lucifer." Shrugging, and then letting out a sigh, he looked directly at his brother. "But it would be better if we got straight to the point of this meeting, since you asked me to join you personally." After what Azrael said, Lucifer simply looked at him for a few moments, and then simply let out a heavy sigh. "Tell me why." "Azrael, why didn't you help me with the rebellion?" What Lucifer said made Azrael look him directly in the eyes. "I, of all the angels who were in heaven, was the only one who helped you with everything you had. And you, what? You turned your back on me and attacked me from behind. Can you tell me why?" Azrael? For Azrael's part, he simply closed his eyes slightly and let out a heavy but bored sigh of tiredness. "Lucifer, we, the angels, are simply soldiers. We do not love, We do not hate. The reason is simple. I did what I was ordered, and that was not to kill you. By Father's orders, what Azrael said made Lucifer remain silent. Things in heaven are starting to turn around, and with the destruction that you and all who followed you did, to battle. Kill me? Why not? After what that old man did, he still spared my life. With clear anger in his voice, Lucifer looked directly at Azrael, who didn't even flinch at the aura he was releasing. Yes, maybe you made a mess, but remember, Lucifer, you are his favorite son, the only one of us who had free will, and for some reason you were called the Morning Star. Azrael closed his eyes slightly, and then looked at them again and saw Lucifer's face. Take this as a punishment from your father, for all the tantrum you threw turning around about to leave. But, Azrael, what's going on? Listen carefully to what I have to tell you before you go. Azrael turns around and faces Lucifer. Azrael, tell me something then. If this is a punishment for me, then what is it about you? What are you trying to tell me? Lucifer smiled at this, but still didn't respond, and then simply left, leaving Azrael with the doubt. What did you want to tell me? / current events / human world / they're finally here. I thought they wouldn't come. The man spoke with some amusement, while in front of him, there were two people. Come on, sit down and let's talk. With what the man said, both had sat at the circular table. One had long crimson hair, and the other had long blonde hair, and his appearance was a little more feminine. Silence fell over the place where the three stared at each other, and the tension was noticeable all around. Well, now we know why we are in this place, right? Was said by the crimson-looking man, making the two nod. It is about a problem that I just mentioned to you, Michael and Azazel. Yes, we know, Michael replied, seriously looking directly at Azazel. Can you start telling us what exactly happened in your sister Serchest's territory? Serchest Gremory, or Lucifer, is the current Mao of the underworld. He is a super demon who enters the top 10 of the strongest existence of supernatural beings, like the other current Maos, which are also considered super demons. Unlike Michael and Azazel, Lucifer surpasses both, leaders of their own factions. Well, recently I received a report from my sister, in her territory in the city of Kuoh, where a fight had broken out between a fallen angel and both faction leaders stared at Serchest, waiting for his response. An angel. What Serchest said made both of them open their eyes in surprise. Wait, are you sure, Serchest? Michael asked in disbelief, receiving a nod from Serchest. For his part, Azazel remained silent for a few moments, thinking about all this. How? If Calawarn had told him that they fought against a Sacred Gears user, but with an angel in demon territory, looking at Michael, he also seemed to be the same as him. It was a fact that until now there was a pact of no gratitude between the three great biblical factions, due to the ravages of war several millennia ago. Serchest looked at Azazel. Are you sure what your sister said is true? After Azazel's question, Serchest remained silent for a moment. For Michael's part, he simply looked at him. Yes, but Azazel, tell me why there were fallen angels in my sister's territory, as well as angels in that place. Now it was his turn to ask, making both leaders look at each other. I had no idea that one of my people was in that place, Serchest, was Michael's short response, making Serchest nod. I sent for a Sacred Gears user, but things got out of control with that user due to a certain misunderstanding. What Azazel said made both leaders look at him. But how is it possible that there is also an angel there, or could it be that he is a half-angel? This made Michael open his eyes in surprise at this statement. Just like Serchest, both leaders looked at each other. Think about it. After Elohim died, the system of heaven suffered several changes, among them, that any supernatural being could have descendants, be it a demon with a human and then the fallen angels. But is it possible that even an angel could have a child and not have fallen? Could that be possible, Michael? Serchest asked now, looking at the angel. For his part, Michael brought his hands to his chin, thinking about the possibilities that Nephilim have been roaming the human world without the heavenly system having detected them yet, meaning that even angels could have their offspring. But, wait, Azazel, you said there was a fight between your subordinates against the user of that Sacred Gears. How do you know? Michael asked, looking at Azazel. Smiles. Well, let's say that they only came from my small group, which I sent to your sister's city to find a Sacred Gear user. Let's say that he let them come back alive. It could be that that boy is the Nephilim we're talking about. Both leaders nod in understanding, and above all, in a few days I'm going to have a meeting with him since he wants to talk to us about that incident. What Azazel said, Both Sir Chest and Michael looked at him, but Azazel raised his hand saying, "Wait, although something gave me a very bad feeling about this, is that Calawarn was trembling when I asked him who that teenager was that I sent to investigate, especially as well as his companions. So it must be someone very powerful, and he must have a Longinus inside him, but which one?" Sir Chest said to himself, "It would be better if you returned to heaven. For now, it would be better to keep this hidden. I will search the system to see if there is a trace of that Nephilim." Michael said, then stood up, followed by the rest. "Well, see you. I will keep my sister and Sona informed," Sir Chest commented, then looked at Azazel. "Azazel, we will talk later, see you." And so each of the two leaders disappeared from the place in magic circles without leaving any trace. / 2 days later / Underworld, Grigori / In the corridors of the large facility, of the main base of the fallen angels, one could notice Issei walking, with his hands in his pockets, being escorted by 2 fallen angels. "Gup, how I hate being near these fallen ones." These were the thoughts of the brown-haired boy, who looked at all this with a bored face, at all the fallen angels. They were looking at him with curiosity, some with some arrogance. But precisely at that, he crossed paths with a certain fallen angel with blue hair and golden eyes. Their eyes collided with each other, and Issei then simply whispered a few simple words, without anyone else hearing. Only the woman then gave him a smile, and continued on her way. On the woman's side, she was completely paralyzed. Meanwhile, Issei and his escorts had arrived at the office, where they opened the door, and Issei entered, and there he saw the leaders of Grigori: Azazel, Penemu, Barakil, and Shimasai, although Barakil is missing, he thought as he approached the table, being seen by those already mentioned. "Although I see that they brought escorts, who are well hidden in the shadows, Sitting on the chair, he let himself fall against the backrest, and rest his gaze on the leaders of Grigori. He looked first at Shimasai and then at Barakil, followed by Penemu and finally Azazel. "Well, why are you so serious?" Issei spoke with a touch of humor. "Looking at everyone, I just came to talk, just with you." For their part, some frowned slightly, but inside they were all completely restless. They did not know the reason for their restlessness. It was like a strange familiar presence, just like Azazel could not shake off that discomfort, so he coughed falsely. "Well, since you're here, welcome to Grigori Haida." Issei Azazel was the first to speak, with Issei who nodded. "I know you asked for a meeting to talk to us, and I think you're upset about what they did to you, so can I know why this meeting is happening?" he asked, and everyone turned their eyes to the brown-haired boy, who laughed lightly, and then let out a sigh. "Is it wrong to come see my brothers, Azazel?" A deep silence had taken over the place. Chapter 5. A huge and deep silence ruled all the current leaders of Grigori. For their part, Azazel along with the rest felt a deep discomfort seeing him sitting there, in front of them with such a calm look. Brothers didn't know who he was or why he said that to her, but seeing him with that unique expression on his face certainly made her body tremble with fear at the sight of the person. Penemu, on the other hand, never took her eyes off Issei. She felt a strange familiar sensation, which caused her 2 feelings, love and resentment against him, but above all longing. Issei let out a bored sigh, then her hair began to change color, turning gray. Her eyes went from being hazel to light blue, her skin became paler, her muscular build changed, and from her back emerged enormous angel wings. No. How are you still alive, Azrael?" Everyone reacted with fear to see him, sitting in that chair. Azazel changed his face from one of surprise to a more serious one, while the others took a few steps back due to fear. But Shimasai quickly created a spear of light, and when he was about to attack Issei, he had already disappeared, leaving everyone surprised, to then see several teenagers fall to the ground knocked out. Looking for someone, Shimasai. Opening his eyes in surprise, Shimasai quickly turned back, and just at that same instant he flew backwards and crashed into the wall, leaving him embedded, while Issei/Azrael had his hands in his pockets, while the others who were there created their light spears ready to attack. "Enough, calm down!" was the shout that Azazel gave, making everyone look at him, including Issei. "Calm down, we did not come here to fight but to talk. Now calm down." He spoke clearly serious, more than unusual, which Penemu, Barakil simply lowered their spears of light, and then he looked at Issei. "Can you sit down, please?" Walking to his chair, with his hands in his pocket, he sat down, and let himself fall against the back. You know, that was very rude to greet me like that. I thought you would be somewhat happy to see me back. He spoke with some amusement. Tell me, how are you alive, Azrael? Issei looked at Azazel, who had a serious expression on his face. They both began to stare at each other, as the air of the place and the tension increased greatly between them as their auras began to surface, causing a great commotion with the other angels who were in the complex. Well, Issei stopped releasing his aura and then simply relaxed and looked straight at Azazel. How have you been, Azazel? I've been fine, thanks for asking, Azrael. How have you been? Azazel relaxed and leaned back in his chair. And I see that you're still alive after the Great War. How? That will be a secret for now. Issei shook his finger. Although I see that you haven't changed at all now. During all these millennia. Well, I can say the same about you. Azazel would look at his brother. Let me guess. You were the one who fought with Calaworn, Middlet, and Rainier, right? Which Issei nods. I see. Neither of them spoke to each other. They both looked at each other once more in the eyes. Azazel, I'll tell you this only once. His tone of voice changed to a more serious one. I want you to give me a quick explanation. It became clear as if it were an order. Azazel simply nodded. Why was my niece wearing such a revealing outfit? After Issei's question, Azazel was speechless, then began to sweat cold because of the look Issei was giving him. But then he calmed down a bit to see how Penemu approached him. Ignoring Azazel, he looked to the side of him and saw Penemu. On the woman's part, she simply clenched her fists, and suddenly, plaff! A slap had sounded in the room, leaving Azazel turned to stone, while Issei had his face looking towards the floor, while Penemu had his hands extended, just as several tears could be noticed. You, how dare you show your face after what you did? He spoke with clear anger in his voice, looking at Issei. For his part, Issei turned his gaze towards Penemu again, a look so bored and disinterested. I don't think you have the right to claim anything from me after all, Penemu. I speak calmly. Damn you, wretch! Screaming, Penemu released his aura. You killed him. Even when he begged for mercy. You murdered him in cold blood. Screamed while looking at Issei. Sighing, are you done? After Issei Penemu's question, he got more enraged, and when he was about to attack him, someone put a hand on Penemu's shoulders. Azrael, I'm asking you to get out of here. Now, Azazel had said seriously, to which Issei stands up and then simply walks towards the exit. On Penemu's part, he simply left, leaving Azazel alone, who took out a small bottle of liquor and began to drink it. //human world //co/ //1 day later // Right now, the chestnut tree was at the Koh Academy, waiting for the dismissal time. Wow, how boring! You can say that, because we're still in this prison if you already know everything. There is a saying that someone said, knowledge is power. Tell the fact, so that you know everything, the creation of the universe, the birth of humanity, the great war of the Olympians, etc. What the dragon said made Issei nod as if to say, good point. After classes, he was about to leave, but a very familiar voice spoke to him from behind. Issei-kun. Upon hearing his name, he turns his face slightly and sees her. What's happening now, Laiko? Asked the brown-haired boy. Can you accompany me to the occult club, please? She asked kindly. Okay. Without giving it much importance, he began to walk, along with Laiko, towards the occult club. Chapter 6. A battle could be seen in what looked like a village where a group of what appeared to be angels with black wings were fighting against bat-winged beings. The group of black wings was being led by a beautiful and sensual woman with purple hair and red eyes, and next to her was a man with short blue hair and the same color eyes. Both were fighting and killing in large numbers with spears in their hands. Their movements were so precise, and at the same time they were coordinated at a great level. Killing the last of them, both individuals look at the destroyed village and then look at each other. Those damn things are causing a lot of havoc, said the woman, while sighing. It's a war. Innocent lives will be in the middle, Penemu. I spoke with a small smile, looking at her happiness. It's better to look for something that can help us. Penemu nods, and together they walk, looking for supplies, although one or another angel looked at the fallen with lust, but she ignored him. Meanwhile, the man takes her hands and intertwines their fingers. I love you. He would approach her and give her a deep kiss on the lips, which was reciprocated by Penemu. I love you too, Tamil. It was already night, and the group led by Penemu and Tamil was camping in the destroyed village. The couple were in a house, both naked, where Tamil was hugging her from behind, and they were covered up to the waist, together. Penemu, what are you thinking about? Penemu would turn her face and look at Tamil. You've been like this all day, can you tell me what's happening to you? Penemu would look at him for a few moments, and then take a deep breath and, I was thinking about our life before when we were in heaven. Tamil would look at her with curiosity. I say everything, we both fell for lust together, when the war ended, between Lucifer and heaven was still being fixed. What Lucifer said made us all think, and the reason why most simply behave like soldiers and that we cannot love. This is for our brother, Azrael, right? Penemu nods and Tamil continues. I see, Azrael was never someone who was capable of showing his feelings. But when we fought against the darkness at the beginning of everything, he saved us more than once, and although he didn't say it, he loved us. But he was always a soldier, and that's how he was created by our father Elohim. He's not Michael or Lucifer, he's a soldier only led by Elohim. What Tamil said made Penemu smile tenderly and give him a small kiss on his lips. That's why I love you, and that's why I don't regret having fallen into lust with you. And I would do it again, Tamil. Me too, Penemu. I will always love you, and I promise that I will protect you. And I would even like to start a family. Well, how about we start making babies right now? Penemu would climb on top of Tamil with a hexy expression on her face. I'd love to. When both were about to start the apartment, a big explosion occurred outside the house, causing both to quickly look at each other. Looks like we have company. Tamil spoke with some annoyance. We'd better get ready now. Both quickly stood up and with magic, made their clothes appear, and quickly went outside the house to find the village completely burned. What's going on here? Both would look at the large amount of bodies lying on the ground, to realize something. Angels don't attack. Quickly they put themselves on high guard, and that was when they saw how a group of lower-ranking Angela would attack both lovers, who responded quickly. The battle began for both Angela, who were surrounded by a large number of angels from heaven. The battle was an inequality of numbers, but both places were fighting with great ferocity. Penemu would create several spears and throw them at a small group, killing them in half, while Tamil was attacking head-on, piercing and splitting a large number of angels in half. Both were fighting, covering each other's backs, killing what were once their brothers. As well as Tamil and Penemu, they knew well this was a war, and both had only one goal in common, and that was to survive. The battle had ended where the fallen angels won. The little battalion that remained of the angels were all exhausted, as were Penemu and Tamil. Hell, I never thought they would attack by surprise. What Tamil said made Penemu nod as if to say, also, we lost a lot of us. Do you think it would be better to return to the base? Tamil would deny. Not yet, we need something before we can go back, and we can do it if you and I continue together. But before he could continue speaking, something had fallen from the sky, causing everyone to quickly become on guard, and Penemu and Tamil were no exception. A large curtain of smoke formed, where it began to disappear little by little, where they saw some metallic boots, just as it was covered by metal up to its waist, and above all some large silver wings were on its back. Looking in front of him was a boy with white hair and red eyes, who looked at all the fallen angels, and then looked straight ahead. His eyes were looking right at Penemu and Tamil. Azrael, TSK, so you had something to do with this attack. What Tamil said made Azrael tilt his head a little in a sign of contention. Don't play an idiot, Azrael. Before attacking, he was stopped by Penemu, who stood next to Tamil and created a spear of light, being followed by Tamil. Azrael, brother, please, we don't have to fight among ourselves. Please don't make me fight against you. We are many more than you. Azrael would close his eyes for a few moments, and then, in the sky, several spears of light were created, and quickly Penemu as Tamil reacted, and the spears of light fell to the ground, creating large explosions. Both Penemu and Tamil were now the only ones alive in their group and stayed away. I see you managed to escape. Turning around, they both saw that Azrael was standing behind them with his arms crossed. But now they will die. Penemu and Tamil created spears of light ready for combat, and Azrael would simply create a sword, and at enormous speed he launched himself against both fallen. Penemu Tamil quickly received Azrael, where they started a fight. Both fallen tried to give accurate blows to Azrael, but he blocked and deflected the attacks with ease. Azrael would attack, giving Tamil a deep cut on his shoulder. Tamil stepped back and Penemu appeared behind him, and when he was about to stab him, Azrael would simply touch the spear of light with the tip of his finger, and then it would disappear. Penemu was left completely vulnerable, and when Azrael was about to kill her, Tamiel had hit him in the face, sending Azrael several steps back. "Are you okay, Penemu?" Penemu nodded and they got back on guard. "We have to be more cautious. This is our first time fighting against Azrael. It would be better to be more attentive." The fallen couple would look at Azrael, who seemed to be normal. "Any ideas, Tamiel?" Tamiel would shake his head, sighing. "Then it would be better to be attentive." The fallen couple were the first to make their attack against Azrael, who upon seeing the couple let out a small sigh, and Tamiel was the first to attack, putting himself in front of Penemu, who would launch a great attack directly at Azrael, who easily blocked it, and would begin to be dragged with it. Tamiel would start with large amounts of blows, which were easily repelled by the angel. Tamiel would throw a strike, and Azrael with his bare hand deflects the attack, and he threw a blow to his chest, causing Tamiel to spit blood and take several steps back. Now, Azrael would see this curiously, and that was when he realized that someone was missing, and he would turn his face, and saw how several magical attacks went directly towards him, hitting him full on, creating an explosion. Penemu was hoping to cause some damage, but when the smoke screen cleared, Azrael could be seen standing without any scratches on his body, and he would launch himself directly at Penemu. Penemu would react quickly, and would begin to block Azrael's attacks, who began to attack Penemu. Penemu could barely keep up with Azrael. When she was in heaven with her sister Gabriel, she was the second strongest angel, and now she is the strongest fallen angel, but she still couldn't keep up with Azrael. Tamiel would arrive, and take advantage of the opportunity to try to stick a spear of light into his back. But he received a surprise when he saw how Azrael's wings pointed towards him, and as if they were projectiles, the feathers shot out, to which Tamiel with his spear of light would begin to block each feather. The feathers, with each impact that it made at the moment of colliding with Tamiel's spear, made the fallen man take a few steps back, although several feathers had grazed one part of his body or another, generating wounds. Nothing serious on Tamiel's body. Penemu was blocking the great onslaught she was receiving from Azrael, who had her under control. Penemu would fall to her knees in front of Azrael, where she then puts her arms crossed and receives a powerful kick, causing her to fly and crash into a house. Azrael would turn around and see Tamiel, who had his entire body covered in wounds, and for a moment his right eye shone light blue, and he lunged at Tamiel. Tamiel would receive large cuts all over his body, not being able to keep up with Issei, who continued attacking at high speeds. Tamiel was beginning to retreat while Azrael attacked. Every cut that Azrael was giving him was in place to not kill him, since he was avoiding hitting them in important parts. But even so, Tamiel was receiving great pain. Falling to the ground, unable to hold on any longer, Tamiel looked up and looked straight into Azrael's eyes. Penemu was crawling under some rubble, only to see Azrael standing and Tamiel lying injured. "Azrael, please no!" She started yelling at Azrael, but he wasn't paying attention, while Tamiel was looking at Azrael, who was standing in front of him with a monotonous look. "Azrael, please forgive me." Begging, he would look into Azrael's eyes. "There are only so many lives I care about, so asking me for compassion is a mistake. After all, I don't have a heart." Azrael would have a sword appear in his hands. For his part, Tamiel would be crying, while Penemu kept shouting at him to stop. But Azrael would raise his hand up, and it was at that same moment that Tamiel would also turn his face and see Penemu. "I love you." And it was there when Azrael, without mercy, without a shred of mercy, had killed Tamiel. His blood splashed the face of the angel, who still had his face without any expression. Penemu was completely shocked, seeing her lover's head fall to the ground, with a smile, and she, "Ah!" Letting out a great heart-rending scream, she began to cry. "Damn you!" Because Azrael hadn't even looked at him. He had his back to him, and then he made his sword disappear and started walking. "Azrael! Damn! I hate you, I hate you! I hate you with all my heart!" Azrael stopped his steps, and then only Penemu saw how he turned his face slightly, and there he saw him is crying. Azrael was crying, but unlike normal tears, these were tears of blood, and that was when Penemu saw how Azrael simply turned around and left. Opening her eyes suddenly, Penemu had gotten out of bed all sweaty, as that dream began to return. Sitting up in her bed, she simply couldn't help but shed a few tears, remembering that event, which had happened in the Great War, and above all seeing the death of her beloved and seeing Azrael crying, but what she did not know was that she had seen Azrael's soul cry. Why? Hugging herself. Tamil, what would you tell me now? Chapter 7. As a father, I hate having to be in front of this thing. With his thoughts clearly irritated, in front of him was a group of teenagers, who seemed to be soldiers, while in front of Issei, there was a group of 5 extremely beautiful women with great figures. So what do you think, Issei? Said a redhead, with blue eyes and a great body to die for. Huh! Were you talking to me? He had clearly been ignoring it for over an hour when the redhead started telling him about the existence of supernatural beings. Something's wrong, Hayate-kun. This time a beautiful woman with black hair and brown eyes spoke. Issei would shake his head and then, nothing's wrong, Tsubaki-senpai. I spoke calmly and then looked straight ahead. And what do they want from me? Easy, Hayate-kun, I want you to join one of our nobility, as both mine and Sona's, and you will have great benefits. Being a demon, you will have great superhuman strength, and even the power to ascend to high-class demon. Issei would let out a sigh and then stood up and looked at the aforementioned. I'm sorry, but I'm not interested in joining any demonic clan. I'd rather live my pathetic life as a normal human and die, whether I'm killed or naturally. Without giving it much thought, he began to walk towards the exit. Well, I'll see you at home, Lyko. And then Issei left the club, leaving everyone with clear surprise on their faces, and a Lyko who couldn't even say or do anything. Wow, that guy is definitely strange, said Tsubaki, looking at the place where Issei had gone. Lyko, can you go talk to your brother please and see if you can try to get him to join our entourage, or if Sona can try to convince him? What Rias said made Lyko nod and then leave, along with the rest who were in the room, while Issei was walking towards his home with such a boring and monotonous look. But then he stops right in front of a black cat with yellow eyes. Humph? Looking curiously at the cat walking around his legs, making sweet sounds. How strange, cats are animals. Crouching down, he would pick it up, and then lift it up to his face where the cat began to lick his cheek, bringing a small smile to the brown-haired boy. Hey, well, you're probably hungry, right? The cat meowed. I'd better take you to my house, where you can eat something. And without wasting any more time, he took her home. When he arrived home, he walked past the living room, ignoring his parents who were watching how their son was ignoring them. When he got to his room, he left his things on the bed and then took the cat down. Hang here, I'll be right back. And without wasting any more time, he went down to the kitchen and grabbed a glass, then poured some milk into it, and grabbed some pieces of bread and without further ado went to his room. Upon arriving, I left all his food on the floor where the cat began to drink Issei's milk. He sighed and then simply rescued himself in his bed. I see you slightly relaxed about today. Drake, do you know how the girl, Gremory and Citri discovered that I have you? That's something that not even I know, partner. Without having the slightest idea, you have released a bit of the energy of the sacred gears. Issei just sighed and then lay down on the bed and stared at the ceiling for a few minutes. Now I'll have to deal with the demons for several weeks. What a pain. Not only with them but also with the bearer of Albion. Yes, I remember correctly, the energy of the Albion carrier is in Grigori. Surely, he is in that army of sacred gear users that he has in his possession. A small smile formed on the brown-haired boy's face. It seems that the threads of destiny have already begun to move, just as Elohim said. In the 7th heaven there was an older man who looked at everything calmly and with a quiet and relaxed look. There you are, here is Azrael. Without turning around to look back, several white feathers fell from the sky and behind him was Azrael. I have already fulfilled the mission that you ordered me to do, he announced while kneeling down. I see, was his short answer. You can stand up. I hate when my own children kneel when they are with me. You can come and stand next to me. Azrael would obey and would begin to walk and stand next to his father. Tell me what you think about this. Pointing to the beautiful field full of flowers and trees and various animals. It's beautiful. Her answer was short and simple. Tell me, Azrael, what do you think about all this about the war? The man asked. Humph? I don't know, I think it's just a whim of Lucifer and his demons as well as the angels. I see. And if I told you that all this has a purpose, what would you think? Slightly closing your eyes, and then opening them again. No, I would understand it even if it is a purpose. Yours, the destiny of the world, would come to an end sooner or later, and I am one who would bring that end to the world. I speak with Mononia. Sighing Azrael, tell me why I let Lucifer live or why I turned Azazel and his followers into fallen angels. Azrael would shrug. Because everything must have a balance in the world. What would happen if I die? The human world would be left unprotected, and the other gods would do with humanity what they wanted, just like in the first wars, when we defeated the Greek and Nordic gods. Exactly, but I have a destiny to fulfill just like everyone else. I will die in this war and the human world will be unprotected. Although left there to the demons, like the fallen ones, they generate chaos in the human world, and then the rest of the gods. So, I will give him humanity, weapons that are capable of killing any supernatural being, and even gods. Azrael is slightly surprised, and then Elohim would appear in one of his hands, a spear well known to Azrael. Is that the one? Elohim nodded. That's right, it's the spear you gave to Longinus, the spear that pierced my son Jesus. This slightly surprised Azrael, who was now seeing the new design of the spear. This is a sacred gears, but the difference is that it creates 13 very different weapons from the normal ones. Longinus, do you know why? To kill gods. Elohim would assist. If you are armed, they are capable of killing the gods themselves, although some are not yet complete. No one knows this. In heaven only you and Lucifer. Lucifer? That's right, my son. As much as you and Lucifer are the only ones who know about the sacred gears, well, Lucifer is a genius, not for nothing. A small smile formed on his face. But, tell me something, Azrael. Are you willing to fulfill the destiny I wrote for you, not only for what you are doing but for the hatred you have generated in all your brothers? Azrael did not respond to his father's question. He remained silent and then, it doesn't matter if I earn the hatred of my brothers, even of the entire universe. Elohim could only look at his son with sadness and a small smile because of the weight he was carrying on his shoulders. Elohim would place his hand on his son's shoulder, and then say a few words. I'm proud of you, my son. Chapter 8. Elohim was fighting with everything he had against one of his sons, Azrael, who was attacking wildly, and his attacks were to kill. Both would clash their respective weapons back and look into each other's eyes, while around them, all the angels and fallen wanted to get inside the barrier to help their father, who created it to protect him, preventing them from interfering in his battle, and that no one could hear them. Penemu, Michael and Gabriel were crying, asking Azrael to stop, but it was no use. Both would clash their weapons at high speed without stopping at any time. Azrael looked into his father's eyes, and without wasting the slightest time he launched himself. Elohim, seeing how his son launched himself towards him with great speed, created several magic circles around him, from which several spears of light came out, and went directly towards Azrael. Azrael saw the attack coming towards him, quickly used his wings as a shield and received the attacks directly. Without being able to do anything else, several wounds formed on his body, but he was still standing, looking at his father, who was getting tired and could barely stand, due to his battle against both celestial dragons, Dragotch and Albion Wyvert. His gaze would travel to see all the angels who were watching the fight trying to interfere, as well as seeing the faces of Michael, Penemu, Gabriel, and his sisters who were crying and screaming. Directly, he could not help but think of everything he did to all the lives that he and his sword had taken, the amount of his brothers that the murderer had taken, and above all, of killing Tamil, his younger brother. His soul began to cry, tears of blood for everything he had to do, so that the destiny of the war would take a different course. Just like Lucifer, he loved his brothers, but advances one had to make difficult decisions. Elohim simply looked at his son and couldn't help but think he was a bad father to most of his children. Seeing how Penemu and Gabriel cried for him only made him feel more guilty, and knowing the fate that awaited him after this battle with Azrael. Without further distractions, they both looked at each other one last time, where Elohim would give him a smile and Azrael would only put on a small smile. Ready, my son? Elohim asked. Ready, father. Azrael replied. It was at that very moment that everything began to go into slow motion for Azrael, as he began to run toward his father, who was also repeating the same movement. Both were looking at each other. Elohim would look for the last time at his son Azrael, and Azrael would look for the last time at his father, where several memories passed through the heads of both. Good moments, when the birth of their children, the angels. Moments where Azrael fought against Lucifer and Michael, because of a joke by Lucifer. Moments where Penemu and Gabriel always played together, or those moments where both Azrael and Lucifer, Michael, and Elohim were in the human world, fishing. Smiles and happiness, and even the most humiliating moments for Azrael, Lucifer, and Michael, when they were objected to by models for Penemu and Gabriel. Elohim couldn't help but shed a tear, while Azrael was in exactly the same boat as his father, moments in which they both would like to be once, with their family, near one. At the other, Elohim would raise his arms with his sword and Azrael would launch a thrust. And it was that the world would move again at the same speed, and the world of the fallen angels and the few demons that remained stopped. Ugh! Spitting blood from his mouth, Elohim looked down at him and saw where Azrael's sword had run through him. Dropping his sword to the ground, he was about to fall but was held back by Azrael, who prevented him from falling. Azrael, I'm sorry for everything. Azrael would shake his head. You don't have to apologize, father, he said as he began to cry. I also took this path, just like you and Lucifer. Elohim simply smiled and suddenly began to disappear into particles of light. I love you all, and if you ever get the chance to talk to them, tell Penemu and Gabriel to forgive their old man for doing all this to him, and, above all, for dying. And with his last breaths, Elohim vanished from the scene, leaving no trace behind, while Azrael remained on his knees, his stained hands standing up, his sword tightly gripped in his right hand. The barrier fell, and at that same instant 2 figures launched themselves at Azrael at great speed. Azrael would quickly block both attacks, taking a few steps back, seeing how the fallen angels and the few demons that remained standing had joined together. In front of him were Penemu and Gabriel. Both were crying and were very upset, and without wasting any more time both women jumped in, being followed by the entire army. Azrael knew that it wouldn't be easy, and if he didn't want to waste any more time, he placed himself on high guard and without hesitation he launched himself against his sisters. The trio clashed their weapons and began to fight, while Azrael blocked Penemu and Gabriel's attacks. Very annoyed, several magic circles and spears of light were created above them where Penemu and Gabriel had moved away, and that was when they all launched their magical attacks. There was Azrael, who put his sword in front and blocked the powerful attack, creating a huge explosion. But in that, Azrael came out of the smoke and launched himself against the group of fallen angels and low-ranking demons. Without wasting time he began to kill large numbers of fallen angels and demons. This time they all joined together and launched themselves against Azrael, who, seeing how the army looked completely towards the east, made his sword shine and launched a magical attack, causing everyone to create a defensive magic circle, but some reacted late and were killed by Azrael. This time the most powerful ones would stand in front of Azrael. Michael, Azazel, Barakiel, Penemu and Gabriel were the ones surrounding Azrael. His eyes shone, and without wasting time he was faced by Michael. Michael and Azrael both began a brutal battle, generating large earthquakes. Azazel would be his support, where both began to attack without wasting more time. Azrael, seeing something Korahl do, used his wings, shooting several feathers, moving away from Azazel and Michael. But he received a great electric attack from behind courtesy of Barakiel, and then he took a few steps back, dodging 2 low-cut kill blows from Penemu and Gabriel. Without further ado, Azrael launched himself at Barakiel, obviously waiting for him. Azazel and Michael, who got right in the middle blocking Azrael's path, who without further ado started a fight. Barakiel, with Penemu and Gabriel, nodded, and together they began to create a powerful magical attack, while Michael and Azazel took care of Azrael. Azrael would see the intention of the group and without further increase his aura. Being followed by Michael and Azazel, the trio looked at each other once and clashed their weapons again, and it was right at that same instant that the trio launched their powerful magic attack towards Azrael, being this one that could not do anything else, while Michael and Azazel barely dodged the attack. Pwag! Spitting blood, Azrael would fall to his knees while having a large hole in the side of his abdomen. He couldn't help but smile as he looked up and saw them there. His brothers, Azazel and Michael, would have spears of light ready to end his life, and Penemu, who was looking at him while he cried, didn't know if it was for him or for Elohim. And Gabriel simply turned his face, avoiding making contact with him, and Barakiel just turned around. Michael and Azazel pointed their spears of light at him, and Azrael only saw how both launched their attacks at him. Closing his eyes and with a smile on his face, he whispered his last words. I am proud of you. were his last words as the spears of light hit him, creating a huge explosion in the place. Several white feathers began to fall from the sky, while all the soldiers simply stood still, and Michael would only look at Azazel. My men and I are not retreating from this war. Michael nodded. You need to retreat too, this is over. Sighing yes, but I would look at the demons who began to retreat. Leave them. Without the leaders there is nothing they can do. For a while we will not hear from them. And after a few minutes all the fallen angels retreated, being just like the demons and angels. Only two of them remained, and they were Gabriel and Michael. Brother, are you okay? Asked Gabriel. Michael, for his part, never turned around when he saw her. Go to heaven, sister, now. He ordered, and his sister just nodded as she walked away, leaving Michael alone while clenching his fists. Damn you, Lucifer, Azrael and Father. Tears began to fall from her face. Because you alone decided to bear everything. Chapter 9. Another normal day had begun at the Great Koh Academy. Well, it was normal to say the least. Currently, Issei is playing chess with a beautiful, black-haired woman of great proportions. She also has a fairly developed body. And checkmate, the chestnut tree would say calmly, moving his last piece. The black-haired woman sighed and then adjusted her hair a little. Good game, Hayate-kun, he would say with a small smile. Issei nodded and then, thank you, Shinra-senpai, but I highly doubt you came here just to play a game of chess with me. Or am I mistaken? This caused a small laugh from the student council vice president Tsubaki Shinra. You're not wrong, he would say as he adjusted his glasses. The real reason is that Sona Kaicho asked me to keep an eye on you. Because Rias-sama tried to recruit him just a few days ago. And since you refused, she asked me to keep an eye on you. Issei understood well everything Tsubaki had told him. It was clear that she had no intention of becoming a demon. In fact, if the demons would recognize him clearly, they would do everything possible to get revenge on him after everything he did to the demons. As well as killing Lucifer himself in front of everyone, as well as Elohim. Not that it bothered him much. But it would be very troublesome to deal with that faction. Or the same faction from heaven itself, and if they also turned Grigori against him. I'd say his head would fetch a high price on the market. Sighing, you don't have to worry about anything, Shinra-senpai. In fact, I'm not an enemy of yours, I spoke very calmly. Tsubaki nodded. So what would you be, Hayate-kun? Let's just say I'm more like your ally, nothing more. I'm not going to interfere with anything you do. As long as you don't interfere with what I do. Although if there's a big enough problem that compromises Koh, I think I'll have to interfere right then. The brunette said with his eyes closed. Well, I'm glad to hear it, Hayate-kun, she would say as she stood up. I have to go, I have to get back to student council. I'm glad to talk to you again and play chess. See you, Hayate-kun, she said goodbye as she began to walk away. Meanwhile, with the chestnut tree, he was gathering all the chess pieces. Until he saw several black feathers falling to the ground. He didn't give it any importance either. He had gathered all the pieces. And then he would just let out a sigh. What are you doing in demon territory, Penemu? She would say, turning around, and there she would look at her older sister. Penemu was wearing only a tight-fitting suit. Over it was a jean jacket. Long black pants and boots. Azrael. I want to talk to you, I speak bluntly. Raising an eyebrow in curiosity, and seeing the serious face that Penemu had, she just sighed and answered it was fine. But let it be after the academy, she said hello, to which Penemu agreed yes. Too much trouble. After a few hours, Issei was walking toward a restaurant. The one Penemu had told him to meet. Upon arriving at the restaurant, he entered without much trouble. And then he saw her sitting there wearing the same outfit he'd seen her this morning. He walked toward the empty seat at the very end. They both looked into each other's eyes, but there were no words. Then Issei briefly closed his eyes. Well, why did you want to talk to me? Penemu didn't respond, just stared into Issei's eyes. A waitress had arrived. May I take your order? Asks a beautiful girl with pink hair and two tied pigtails. Her eyes are the color of ruby. If I would like a hamburger, said the brunette, and the woman wrote it down in a folder. Are you Miss? I asked. The same as him, please, she said, and then the maid wrote it down and left. Neither of them said a word as they stared at each other. They stood like that for a few minutes until the woman brought his burger. Issei just took it and started eating it, just like Penemu. Neither of them said a word to each other. They just enjoyed their meal in silence. Azrael, Issei, he said, making her stay silent. These days they call me Issei, said the brown-haired boy. So you were always alive, I said seriously, looking at him. Since when? I asked, looking at him. Since the medieval era. To be precise, since the era of King Arthur, he said without much importance. So you were always alive? Hidden from all of us, she said angrily as she clenched her fist. Actually, I am human, he said as she looked at him. You lie. I never lie, Penemu. And you, more than anyone, know that I never lie, he said, taking a sip of his drink. So explain to me how you overdrank, she asks. Issei lets out a sigh. You're not ready for that, he said without much importance. Penemu gritted her teeth in frustration. Her hands began to shake with rage as she watched her brother eating, not caring that she was there. Azrael, tell me now. It was more of an order than a question. I'm your older sister. Now tell me. Issei narrowed his eyes and stopped eating his food, then snapped his fingers. A barrier formed around them. This barrier won't let anyone hear us, he said casually. So tell me what you want to know. I want to know everything. And don't hold back any details, she said, sounding aloud, to which Issei simply sighed again. What an annoying woman! In the sky, there was a white-haired boy sitting in a beautiful field of flowers, looking around at the beautiful place. So here you were, a female voice spoke behind him. Is something wrong, One-chan? Asked the boy, turning to see the purple-haired woman who was wearing a battle suit. Azrael, what did I tell you when we entered the Garden of Eden? She approached and then knelt in front of the boy. You know Father doesn't like us being here. As long as Adam and Eve are living here. The boy lowered his head slightly, somewhat sadly. This made the woman look at him, and then she stroked his ash-colored hair. I'm sorry, One-chan, it won't happen again. The woman simply let out a sigh and then took up part of her garment, right behind her neck, and then lifted it up. Hey! One-chan, put me down! Azrael shouted while the woman let out a small giggle. Come on, Azrael, it's time for your training. Besides, you don't want to get scolded by Uriel, she said firmly as she began to forcefully take the boy away while Azrael screamed. Far away there were two teenagers next to an adult. Hee, it seems that Azrael is going to have a hard training with Penemu, commented the blonde teenager. Well, he is one who can become a high-ranking archangel like you, Michael, said the other teenager. And what do you think, Father? I believe he will. Lucifer and Michael will do many great things. And you will be the ones who guide Azrael on the right path, the man commented. Lucifer and Michael nodded and then left while Elohim looked right at where there were two naked people who were only covering their privates. One was a very young man with blonde hair and light blue eyes, and the other was a beautiful woman. Chapter 10. Silence was the only thing in the room. Penemu was staring straight into the eyes. The brunette who had once been her brother and who, technically, was still her younger brother. She would only look at him with some pity, something that Azrael noticed, but he cared little. He felt pity or sorrow for her. Oh hey, you're still there. She was pulled out of her thoughts when the brunette snapped his fingers in front of her. Is something wrong? After Issei's question, Penemu nodded as she watched her younger brother's dull expression. He seemed calm despite everything he'd had to do in the past. If it's just that it's a lot of information, Penemu would let out a sigh. Issei shrugged and stood up and, listen, Penemu. Issei would look at her, and then, I hope these answers are what you need. And Issei left that place, leaving a Penemu behind. She only observed her brother's request. She also left the money. Walking through Issei Park, she stopped suddenly and looked at a nun who was being helped by Kiba Yudo. That's something unusual. It's true, isn't she the nun who cured the devil? Drake would speak, making the brown-haired boy nod. Yes, although closing his eyes slightly. It's not something that concerns me, but the Gremory girl. I understand. Drake wouldn't speak anymore, making the brown-haired boy know that his conversion was over. While he watched from afar, Kiba accompanied the Mojin. Upon arriving home, Issei sat down on the couch. He took out a book while his parents looked on, looking a little uncomfortable. Ju sighing, and is something wrong, Oka-san and Odo-san? Issei would ask, seeing his parents who looked at each other, and the first to speak would be his father, Goro Hyodo, who is a tall man, apparently about 35 years old, with an appearance similar to his son. "Son, your mother and I want to talk to you about something." His father would sit next to the chestnut tree, who raised an eyebrow at this. "About what?" "It's just that I know we don't spend much time with you and that lately we've been neglecting you for your sister." His mother would speak right now. Miki Hyoto was a woman who, like Goru, had a mature appearance and long brown hair. She also appeared to be around 35 or 37 years old. "Do I understand?" Issei spoke with some insecurity because he hadn't even noticed his parents' absence. Of course, this didn't affect him in the slightest. In fact, he was quite grateful that his parents were mostly with his sister. This gave him a lot of freedom, as he had been used to being alone for millennia. If only they knew who their son really is and everything he's been through in the past, plus that he met people who were extremely important in world history, being the one who was responsible for murdering several people. "You see, son," his mother would take one of his hands, making Issei raise an eyebrow. "What we want to tell you is that we want to give you a reward for all your efforts at school." Goru would hand a small envelope to Issei. Thanks, I guess." Taking the letter, he would look at it for a few moments, and, looking at his parents, who seemed nervous about something he didn't understand at all, so he took the letter and opened it. He saw a little money tucked away inside. As much as Goru and Miki were completely impatient to see how their son would react, they would never tell him out loud. The truth is, they had never loved their son, Issei, before. Not like their daughter. Issei was an accident to them. Since Issei was still a baby, Goru had to make a great effort to buy and pay for everything to support his two children, just like Miki, who had to make a great effort to support her two children, Issei's older sister, who was only 3 years old at the time. It was a tough time back then, because Goru. They barely had a salary that could pay the bills. And if they were lucky, they could eat at the beginning. When Issei turned 10, they had started ignoring him and paying more attention to Issei's sister, who began to have various problems. She had to deal with depression and bullying, as well as buying her clothes and other constant harassment from her classmates. And the girls who made fun of her for being fat. They had to take her to therapy more than once, and over time they stopped paying attention to Issei and forgot about him completely for a few years. Without even knowing he existed, it wasn't until a certain accident that everything changed for them and their eldest daughter, those who remembered their son and younger brother. And from there, they tried to get even a little closer to their son, but the younger brown-haired boy either ignored them most of the time, or simply didn't say a word to him. The end. "Well, thanks, I guess." Leaving the letter on a small table, they would settle down, and then he would take his book. A deep silence, uncomfortable for the adults, except for Issei, who was reading quietly. Because Issei/Azrael liked it. More than anything, what Azrael/Issei hated most was having to deal with people. You could certainly say he likes being antisocial, but, clearly, luck was never on his side. There was always someone who prevented or disturbed his peace and beautiful solitude. It was his siblings, or rather, certain humans I'd met in the past. King Arthur's Jeanne d'Arc, Gilgamesh, or even certain gods, or more specifically, goddesses. Among them were Aphrodite, who tried to seduce him more than once. Ishtar, the goddess of love, and the blonde from Babylonian mythology. And not to mention that he had to hide from Tiamat. His luck was undoubtedly a plague when it came to wanting to be alone. Even his father was annoying because even though he could kill as many people as he wanted and sin, he wouldn't fall from the sky. But that never mattered to him in the slightest. "I'm here!" And with that shout, his parents breathed a sigh of relief. They saw a beautiful girl, a little taller than Issei, approaching the door. Long brown hair and brown eyes. "Hello, daughter, how did it go at the club?" Miki asked. "Good, although things are still somewhat boring," the girl would say. This was Hyoto Izumi, Issei's older sister. She currently studies at Koh University. Unlike Issei/Azrael, Izumi is a very friendly person. She became quite protective of her brother Issei, who, unfortunately, is the only person who has always been on his side since they got back together. "Hi, Issei-kun!" And just when Izumi jumped and hugged him, making Issei drop his book. "Did you miss your one-chan?" "No," Issei replied dryly. This was certainly doing something to him. Uncomfortable because it brought back certain memories from when he was still in heaven, more specifically, when all his sisters were always on top of him. Or worse yet, when Gabriel was. Penemu and Calaworn were the ones who were on top of him the most figuratively, since he was a child. He was always forced to bathe with them, and that's why Azrael once thought his father created most of his sisters into incredibly beautiful women. But most importantly, why two of his older sisters, Penemu and Gabriel, were so damn sexual. Was his father incisively indecent? These questions kept him awake at night. In a beautiful field full of flowers, Penemu was standing, observing the entire place. Jews sighing, "How long has it been since we both spoke, sister?" Behind him, a glow appeared. From there emerged a beautiful woman with long, golden hair of considerable proportions. "Hello, Penemu." With a small smile she approached and stood next to him. Gabriel, Chapter 11. "I never thought you'd call me back from Penemu. We haven't spoken since, you know." A beautiful girl with long golden hair and light blue eyes spoke. "I'm glad to know you're okay, Gabriel." Penemu looked at her sister, who smiled and approached despite the fact that they were once enemies. In the Great War, they finally put aside their differences after the death of their father, Elohim. As the years passed, the two beautiful women continued to talk, obviously in secret, as they didn't want to cause any drama for their respective factions. "How are things at Grigori, sister? Calm down for now. What about the sacred sword fragments? In a few days I'll send my best warrior to investigate the Vatican Church. Do you also have traitors?" Gabriel nodded and continued. "For quite some time now, members of the church have been acting rather strangely. And that's not good, and there are some who have used their power or rank to commit atrocities," Gabriel said. It was no secret that after Elohim's death, the great system of heaven radically collapsed, with heaven's most powerful and loyal angel, Michael, taking over. But with the system damaged, the angels could no longer have normal angels when Elohim was alive. What caused the death of Elohim was much worse for the human world, for not only the changes but also prayers stopped being answered and food began to decay, which caused the darkest era in religion to arrive. The Catholic Church began to commit various atrocities in the world. With everything under control, and each priest in control, they began to see several deaths. As corruption also began to rise radically, the Church not only had power, it provoked wars against other beliefs but also prevented the advancement of medicine with false lies that it was the one who cured and healed everything. Anyone who had a different opinion at that time was cruelly murdered or, worse, burned at the stake. The Church not only had the power to do whatever they wanted, but they were also the ones who truly controlled the kingdoms of antiquity. The angels at that time could do nothing but watch as the divine creation of the gods and Elohim slowly fell into great suffering. But it wasn't until the angels themselves decided to use the method the devils used: human reincarnation. Unlike the devils, they used cards. From that time on, the Church began to be controlled not only by angels, but humanity itself began to advance thanks to humans. Their minds finally opened, and they waged war against the Church itself, and from that time on, the Church ceased its corruption. But who said it was all for the good? There still remained that stain that caused the Church to lose power. The death of the maiden Jeanne d'Arc finally liberated France, and the villagers themselves began their great brawl. The Catholic Church lost large numbers of believers around the world, leaving them powerless, and above all, the Catholic religion and the teachings of Elohim. They would have almost become mere mythology, just as had happened with Norse, Egyptian, Babylonian, Aztec, and Greek mythology, which in their golden age were religions. In the end, the fate of the biblical religion still stands, with great sorrow and, above all, pain. It seems that Grigori is not the only one dealing with traitors in our ranks. Do you know something that is really happening, Penemu? Penemu shakes her head and sighs. I'm not aware of it. But Azazel and Shemashai have apparently been investigating strange movements not only within our own race but also within other races. We're not the only ones in this situation, Gabriel said. What do you think about that, Penemu? Something very big will appear. Both women remained silent and then simply watched as several children were playing in the park with their parents, or other children playing together. It's very beautiful, isn't it, Penemu? Penemu nodded. Yes, at first I wondered why Father was so fascinated with humans, Penemu said. But with the time I was in heaven I began to understand why Father loved them so much that he even threatened so many gods from different worlds. They were his children. What Father always said was that no matter how many mistakes humans made, they were just like us. Gabriel said. The only difference between them and us is their short lifespan. Despite having a short lifespan, they live incredibly well. They suffer difficulties. But despite those difficulties, they always keep moving forward. It reminds me of those two, Lucifer and Azrael. Right. Understanding what her sister meant, Penemu nodded and looked back at the children. Lucifer and Azrael were the same as children, even though they had their differences and were always fighting against Michael. They always stood by their father's side. Between them it was always a competition of who was better at something. Smiling, Gabriel couldn't help but remember the past where both sisters always had their arguments, or even Michael himself, who was the one who almost always got hurt because of both siblings. The Morning Star and the Angel of Death, said Penemu. The years passed really quickly, didn't they, Penemu? If, in the millennia I've been alive, there are times when I wonder what would have happened if Lucifer had never revealed himself. Or if I had never succumbed to lust and had hexed there. Nobody knows, Penemu. If that were the case, even Azrael and Lucifer would have been there. They brought about their own end of the world. Smiling, Penemu nodded. But Penemu thought carefully about whether to tell him the truth. That his younger brother Azrael was still alive, or to tell him about his death and the trio's decision. You know something, Penemu. That? I realized something important about 3 years ago before our Great War began, and it was about Lucifer. Gabriel said. What would that be? That during Lucifer's rule of the underworld, things went well for Ivan. He never treated other low-power demons as mere commoners. He still had that noble and kind heart, but after the creation of other demons like Asmodeus, Leviathan, and Belzebub, they had different ideologies than what Lucifer wanted in the demon world. Remember, sister demons were born through an angel. Only Lucifer wasn't just an angel, he was part dragon, an angel, and Nephilim. If it wasn't a bad enough secret, in fact, even Azrael is Nephilim, between the first original demon Satan and an angel. The story of the three most powerful angels in heaven and the most powerful creation of Elohim, the archangels, Michael, the great leader of the army of heaven, an angel of great destructive power, as well as the bearer of the great sword that splits not only dimensions but also he is capable of killing gods. The Sword of Fire. Lucifer, or as his angel named Samuel. He was half angel and half dragon. Despite all that, Lucifer was the second of the three most powerful brothers in heaven. And finally, Azrael. The angel of death itself. Azrael was a hybrid between an angel and the body that once remained of the true saint, the first devil, and the obvious reasons why Azrael did not fall from heaven. The three most powerful archangels in the entire great history of divinity, and the human race, they were the ones who controlled certain parts of heaven. Or also the guardians of God's scribes. Michael was in charge of giving Mary the message so that her younger brother Jesus could be born. Azrael was in charge of watching over them until the day of his death, and Samuel was in charge of unleashing the plague as well as the great flood. Although the two most well-known archangels in human history were Michael and Lucifer, one for being known as the first rebel angel in history, and the other for being the angel of justice, Azrael was the least known, despite being the third most powerful angel in the divine army. Beings that were powerful but with a big heart, even though Azrael didn't show it. Smiling, Penemu finally made a decision. Gabriel, there's something I have to tell you. What would that be, Penemu? Penemu remained silent for a few minutes and finally let out a sigh. It's about Azrael. What does he have to do with this now? Penemu remained silent for a few minutes, and then sighed again. Azrael is alive. Gabriel was in complete shock upon hearing what Penemu was saying, but did it have to be impossible? She herself saw him die in that last attack. Looking at her sister Penemu waiting for an answer, she simply looked at her seriously. Right now she knew that she was telling the truth. Hyodo Issei was currently sitting down while in front of him were two girls wearing robes. Judging by the robes they were wearing, Issei quickly realized that they were members of the church. I'm glad to see you guys again, it's been a while, said one of the hooded women very excitedly. Do I know you? Said Izumi. It's me, Shido, your childhood friend Shido Irina. The hooded man removed his hood, as did his companion. Izumi was greatly surprised to see her childhood friend. Except for Issei, who didn't show it on his monotonous face. But inside that monotonous face, he was slightly surprised, although of course, he also had his suspicions. I thought you were a boy. Well, at that time I wasn't so feminine. Smiling tensely at her, Irina said. Her companion faked a cough, which made Irina look at her. Oh right. She's my fellow Zenovian church member. Introducing his partner, Zenovia was a beautiful foreign-looking girl. Short blue hair with a verdate strand. Her eyes were a medium yellowish color. Nice to meet Irina's friends, Zenovia said. The pleasure is mine. I'm Izumi Hyodo. The brunette introduced herself by shaking hands with Zenovia, looking now at Issei, who let out a sigh. Issei. Hyodo Issei. Just like his sister, Issei shook hands with Zenovia, but when Zenovia touched Issei's hands, her whole body had frozen in fear. Her body had gone cold, as if she had touched death itself. Hey, can you let go of my hand now? Realizing that he was still holding her hand. I'm sorry. No problem. Apologizing, Zenovia let go of Issei's hand. Just as the brunette settled herself onto the couch. After that, both Irina and Izumi began to talk animatedly. Although Issei sometimes joined in the conversation, but Zenovia still didn't take her eyes off Issei. In fact, Zenovia never took her eyes off him. Since she touched Issei's hand, she felt like her life was ending. Irina, I think it's time to go. Irina would look at her partner and friend, and she nodded. It was nice to see you guys again. Likewise, Irina. Same as her. Each one expressed themselves in their own way. Izumi's was livelier and happier, while Issei's was dull and disinterested. Leaving the Hyodo residence, Amaba Exorcist was walking down the street. Irina, did you feel it? Irina nodded and looked at the blue-haired girl. Yes, Zenovia, in fact Izumi was a demon. Yes, but your friend knows about the supernatural. No, why? Zenovia, what's happening? Zenovia would look at her friend one more time and then let out a sigh. Nothing. Leave it. I think I just imagined it. Saying that last thing, both exorcists left that place. Chapter 12. Ah, how boring. Seriously, boss, when are we going to fight those demons? I'm getting bored. Fred should be more patient. In a day you'll have the fun you want so much. You better be, old man. Fred would leave the room while Father Valper turned around and looked at the man who was sitting on a throne. So Valper, how are the Excalibur fragments? It's fine, my lord Kokabil. The Vatican Church sent 2 users of the sword's mimic and destruction to Koh. According to our spies, they are currently in the abandoned church of Koh. A smile appeared on the face of the cadre who stood up. Get everything ready. I can't hold back my desire to fight those demons and exorcists any longer. Walking towards the exit, being followed by Valper, who also accompanied him with a smile. In the Occult Research Club, all the members of the devil nobility were gathered. Rias and Sona sat on the sofa opposite them, both exorcists with serious expressions. Okay, we're all here now. What do the church members want in our territory? I spoke first, looking at the 2 exorcists. It's easy. We want to ask your permission to be in your territory, to fulfill the mission that the church gave us. Zenovia took the floor. It's easy to say that. Can we know what kind of mission that is? No, it's a classified matter of the Catholic Church, and we don't want to have business with devils. The situation became quite tense on both sides. On one hand, the demons weren't liking this at all. Although the church, or rather the Vatican, was involved in this, it wasn't a good idea. Well, despite being demons, members of the Vatican Church are said to act very independently of those the angels want, which causes them to do shady business. I understand your point, but if you want to be on our territory, and just strolling around like that, you have to at least tell us what's going on. Sona said. Do you think we'll do something individual in his territory, devil? Yes, even though you are members of the church, you are not exactly saints, and in fact. Sona would adjust her glasses. The church is completely worse than us demons, or was I wrong? Exorcist. The gaze of both exorcists hardened as Sona simply watched calmly with a slight, small smile. Okay. Irina was the first to speak. Irina? It's okay, after all, it's better this way. The reason we're in Koh City is because someone broke into the Vatican and stole the fragments of the sacred sword Excalibur. Irina said. With this information, the demons opened their eyes slightly while Kiba clenched his teeth and fists in rage. How was that possible that Alan stole the fragments of the sacred sword? According to our information, the one who stole the fragments of the sacred swords was Kokabil. With that last bit of information, the eyes of both heiresses opened wide in incredible surprise, for Kokabil, also known as the Angel of the Stars, is one of the few cadre-level angels. He fought against the biblical god Elohim and the original Lucifer, and survived that battle. So Rias said. Do you think we're working for them? We believe that after all demons are like that. I think you have very bad information about us demons, but if you think that you are very wrong, exorcist, neither I nor my nobility would be working with the fallen angels. Same with me, we may be demons, but we've never worked against fallen angels. It was true that the relationship between fallen angels and demons was like a relationship between cats and dogs. They couldn't even look each other in the eye due to several differences: the arrogant demons who believe themselves to be beings of greater power, or the fallen angels who think they are better than the angels and demons themselves. It is a clear example that both parties could not even see each other for different reasons, although of course the only one who does not have a problem with the fallen angels would be the angels themselves, and the latter do not have the same problem with the demons. It would be the only faction that coexisting with both sides would be the best for them. Good, Zenobia said. I think this meeting is over, we're leaving. Standing up, both exorcists began to walk until they stopped right in front of Asia, who instinctively stepped back. I've been thinking about this since we arrived. Are you Argento? The witch who cured a demon. Yes. I see. Tell me, do you still believe in our Lord? What are you saying, Zenobia? You know that demons hate our Lord. I know, Irina, but I'm a little intrigued by her. Even if I'm a demon, I still pray in the name of God. And with that last scream and a small headache on the part of all the demons, as well as bringing out slight smiles from these same people. I understand. But now everyone turned their gaze to Zenobia, who was still looking at Asia, and then removed all the bandages that covered the sword. So if you still believe in our Lord, I'd better kill you if you still believe that. Thump! But he couldn't finish speaking, because his heart had frozen in terror, just like all the demons who were around him. Thump! Zenovia's face began to change its expression to a scared one, and her body began to shake more and more, losing strength in her arm, and dropping her sword to the ground. Instinctively she stepped back. You'd better apologize if you don't want to die, a deep voice said, making more than one person's heart stop in fear. And I won't repeat it again, exorcist, apologize now. And Zenobia turned her gaze to Asia, who was just as scared as her, even looking at all the demons who were the same. Who are you? Trying to sound strong, he felt his heart race faster and faster with each passing second. And I'm just an angel telling you no, ordering you to apologize if you don't want to lose your life now. Thump! Kya! Irina fell to her knees as she held on to the part of her heart and began to lose consciousness. Irina, you better hurry up or your friend will die of cardiac arrest. That's my last warning. I'm sorry. Bowing, she apologized, and the whole place went back to how it was before as the demons began to breathe again. Cough, cough. Irina, quick, Asia, help her. Listening to Asia, she approached and using her sacred gears began to heal Irina, who was crying. Even several of the demons were totally scared and had never felt such a terrifying presence. Rias would turn to look at her childhood friend and, we have to tell the Maos about this. Knowing that this wasn't something to be taken lightly, Rias nodded for the first time. The heiresses of both important demonic clans felt a fear they had never felt before. Why did you do it? What kind of question is that? You know what I mean, Issei. Right now, walking outside the Koh Academy. Hyodo Issei was standing there calmly talking mentally with his friend Drake. Hump, the wet girl is pure faith towards father. Besides, I didn't like the blue-haired exorcist. And using one of your skills to cause fear, knowing that the heaven system would react, or that even your room and your famous fire sword would too. Sighing, it's not much, but it's nothing either, although now the angels will surely be crazy looking for me everywhere. I still think you're drunk. I'm very light-hearted, Azrael. Humph. At the end of the conversation, Azrael would stop his steps right in the middle of the park, and several black and white feathers began to fall from the sky, and a large barrier began to fall from the sky. And Issei would react quickly by dodging a large spear of light that completely destroyed half of the plaza. I see you've found me already, that was fast. Above. Listening to his friend Drake, he made a great turn and made a spear of light appear in his left hand. He began to deflect each attack with his hand with ease. One point of the long-distance attack skills was that they were out of the range of Issei's vision, who was using his dragon wings. He looked around the band from various directions, still holding the spear of light in his hand. Turning around, he blocked a back attack and the great killer instinct that was beginning to emanate from the figure attacking him. Gritting his teeth, he pushed her away as he watched from a distance her long blonde hair moving with the wind. Closing his eyes slightly, Issei took his spear of light in his hand and leaning forward he moved at an incredible speed. Both of them collided their respective spears of light and began to fight against each other. Both moved at great speed with each attack. being so fast that it was impossible for the human eye to see. Both clashed their spears again and began to struggle each other, where the one who retreated was the woman. Azrael/Issei would take advantage of her angel abilities and being a dragon as well as her demonic blood. Muttering a few words, he materialized the yawn, and his hair turned reddish and his eyes changed to those of a reptile and horns grew on his forehead. Sharp fangs ready to bite. Issei/Azrael was now ready to fight seriously. Taking this into account, she kicked her opponent in the stomach with a powerful kick, who unfurled large, beautiful white wings. Creating several spears of light around Issei, she made a movement with her hands and the spear fell like missiles towards Issei. Issei watched each attack and quickly ran towards his opponent. Dodging and blocking each attack, he appeared in front, ready to stab him. Clank! The great metallic sound was heard, making Issei frown at the weapon. His opponent was holding a sword that had a beautiful saber-like appearance, a large hilt, a beautiful white color with blue accents. Seeing this, Issei began to struggle with his spear of light and his opponent having the same. Both were at a standstill. They both looked straight into each other's eyes as a golden glow appeared in their enemy. And Issei shone a grayish hue with red touches in the end. Issei threw a kick down in order to break the deadlock. But seeing this, she reacted by putting her foot in front and had blocked his attack. Neither of them could now separate themselves from that deadlock, releasing a great energy just like her. Everything around them was slowly beginning to crumble. A crater was forming where they were standing, and seeing that this wasn't going to end, Manus took a risk and took a great flight with his wings, and extending his hand forward, several magic circles appeared all over the battlefield. Neo, and a large number of attacks of different elements came out of the magic circle and went directly towards where her opponent was, who, upon seeing the attack coming towards her, stuck her sword in the ground and a dome appeared around her. And a huge explosion occurred. After a few minutes, the dome that covered her disappeared, and feeling something sharp on her neck, she raised her gaze towards the front of her. "Give up, Gabriel, you've already lost." Gabriel would look in front of him at Issei, who was still with his Bostiger materialized and with a sharp look. In heaven, many angels were completely crazy. Some were totally scared. It had to be a joke. The alarms had sounded and everyone was trembling, and a large group of angels were all in front of a door on high guard, while the archangels were all in a meeting in a room. "What do you think is happening, Griselda?" "I don't know, Dulio. I've never seen everyone like this before. Michael-sama, Metatron-sama, and Uriel-sama are completely scared, and Gabriel-sama disappeared. This isn't normal, and the mysterious door that could never be opened is now shining, and the sky is even sounding the alarm. It must be extremely dangerous. Do you think it's him? He's supposed to be dead, but there is a possibility that he is still alive. We don't know, Dulio, but we'd better be prepared for the worst." Chapter 13. You're quite strange. No one has ever rejected me so many times in my life. I'm speaking of a woman of supernatural beauty. Her blonde hair is decorated with flowers, and she has an extremely voluptuous figure, with very large breasts and wide hips. She wears traditional white Greek clothing that barely covers parts of her body. "Humph. What do you want, Aphrodite?" said the man, who was wearing leather armor and had a sword at his waist, and short hair and a ponytail. He also had beautiful blue eyes. They were both at a beautiful lake in daylight. Several animals passed by, not even bothered by the two guests' interruption. "You're cruel, and to think that you're an angel. Your hair is hidden in that human body, Azrael. You're not the one to tell me that. Why don't you go back to Olympus before your husband comes looking for you?" Starting to walk through that place, the Greek goddess began to follow him. "Azrael, wait," Aphrodite said. "I want to be with you. I want to be your wife and your woman. I don't care about other men, not even my husband." Azrael kept walking without stopping, not caring what the goddess of beauty said. "Azrael, I'm really telling you. What do I have to do to make you fall in love with me?" In a desperate rush, she rushed over and hugged him from behind. The angel of death simply sighed and, taking Aphrodite's hands, pulled her away. This woman was completely otherworldly beautiful. And while she might be beautiful and all, he wasn't interested, nor did he want to deal with the Olympians. They would bring too much chaos to the angels and the factions, who are in a weak state. Yet here she was, bothering him and messing up his beautiful tranquility, and he didn't want to have to deal with her in many ways. Despite having so many lovers, and most likely the poor god of the forge, Hephaestus, knows, I already told you, Aphrodite, you are of no interest to me. Saying that for the last time, he disappeared from the sight of the goddess of beauty. She was left standing there alone. The only man who didn't look at her with lustful eyes, the only man who rejected her. They had the greatest luxuries, but there she was, crying over a man. The first man she fell in love with had rejected her, and now she was paying. It was karma. Maybe now she knew what Hephaestus felt, and it was painful. She looked up at the sky once more as she cried for her unrequited love. // Koh Academy // It was already nighttime at the Koh Academy. Right now, there was a huge barrier courtesy of the Citri entourage who were on the outskirts holding it down with their magic. Kokabil's attack was fast enough to be able to plan the counter-defense well. But things started to get out of control. First, Kiba and Zenobia disappeared, and Irenia was found unconscious and without her sword, or rather, without the other fragment of the Excalibur. In the end, it was all thanks to Kokabil, who was determined to unleash another war. He was completely dissatisfied with how the previous holy war had ended. One thing was clear: Kokabil was a maniac and insane. In the end, he kept Aria's Gremory entourage as close as possible until the arrival of Sir Chest Lucifer, Rias's brother, and others. So who will come? Will it be the Mao Lucifer or the Mao Leviathan? Kokabil was extremely excited as he looked below him. To the rest of the demons left to fight: Rias Gremory, Akeno Himejima, Asia Argento, Hyoto Izumi, and Tujo Kaneko. Who were the attack team? Rias would take a step forward, being covered by his power of destruction. No one, Kokabil. We'll be the ones to stop you right here. Oh, too much confidence, Gremory. Well then, entertain me until then. Snapping his fingers, a magic circle covered in fire appeared, and from it emerged several Cerberus. Rias and company were completely shocked as they watched the Cerberus. How is this possible? Cerberus are supposed to guard the gates of hell. Oh, this was just a loan from Hades. The Greek god is certainly quite generous to lend me his pets. That's impossible. Hades is supposed to hate all beings in the world. Kokabil's smile grew as he looked at the group of demons in front of him. It was true, Hades hated every living being on Earth and in the other world. But the beings he hates most in this world are the fallen angels and demons, for having taken what he believes to be his. Hell, it's true that Hades lent me his pets, although it's somewhat understandable why he lent them to me. Don't you believe it? Rias's expression changed to a more serious one, and she set her sights on the fallen angel, while giving signals to her entourage to fight. Launching herself first into the fight was Kaneko, who gave a great blow to one of the Cerberus, sending them flying, followed by Izumi, who activated her sacred gears, while in the academy buildings was Issei/Azrael watching all this from the roof of the academy with a cold expression and a frown. That bastard. Shall we act? Yeah. While the battle was taking place, Rias Akeno was fighting with the cadre, who blocked each attack with ease with her wings. But something caught everyone's attention, and a large red blur suddenly appeared. All Kokabil could see was a fist crashing into his left cheek. Everyone stopped their attacks, even the Cerberus, who watched all this in shock. Kokabil, stunned, looked in front of him. There was a dragon-like armor of a beautiful red color with green gems. Sekyudai. Everyone listened to what Rias said and was completely surprised. The Sekyudai, also known as the Mighty Red Dragon, was standing before them. He was one of the only 2 dragons in history who had achieved the power of celestial dragons. Dragach, the Dragon of Wales and the symbol of Great Britain from the story of King Arthur. Kokabil. What's the Sekyudai doing here, huh? Don't tell me you're looking for your white rival. No, I came here for you. Boots. A shimmering glow appeared on his left hand. The Sekyudai launched himself at Kokabil. Seeing this, Kokabil reacted quickly, blocking the Red Dragon's direct attack. The Gremory group was slightly relieved to have another ally in the fight, or so they wanted to believe. Jaya! Asia's scream alerted everyone. They quickly turned around and saw a gigantic Cerberus about to bite Asia. They couldn't do anything but watch. They saw the Cerberus brutally split in half. Let me also participate in this. Recognizing the voice, they saw Zenobia with her sword. Several more swords appeared on the ground, striking the Cerberus. And I also want to join this fight, Bucho. Kiba, Rias' happy cry upon seeing her knight returned. He was winged by Zenobia, and in front of him was Valper along with Fred with the sword Excalibur finally united. They arrived late. The Excalibur is already complete, and no one will be able to stop it. Valpar Galilei, I will avenge my friends and destroy that cursed sword. Knight Gremory allows you to fight too. You can destroy the sword. Ha ha ha, do you really think you can handle my beautiful Excalibur? Zenobia dropped her sword and then looked at Fred. No, but with this sword I can Duran now. A huge sword emerged from a magic circle covered in several chains. Zenobia would take the sword from the mage and then pull it out of their hand. How is it possible that you have that sword without having the ruby? Unlike the users of the sacred sword, who need a ruby where all the prayers are, Zenobia was a natural wielder of the Durandal. They are among the few warriors born with that incredible compatibility, very few. Among them was the previous wielder of that sword, who was a monster among supernatural beings despite being only human. That's none of your business, even a traitor to the church. Like you, Valper? Oh well, then let's see which sword is better. With all Fred's madness, he launched an attack, as did Kiba and Zenobia. Rias and Akeno were finishing off large amounts of Cerberus, but more than once their gaze passed to the Security with whom she was fighting against the cadre. They were relieved that the red dragon was on their side for the moment, and continued with their thing. Kaneko took one of the Cerberus and threw it against the sky with a huge jump, and joining her hand she gave it a great hammer blow, causing the Cerberus to crash to the ground. Falling to her feet, she looked at the Cerberus. Weakling, saying that, Kaneko rushed to help her king and queen. The Security and the cadre were both having a fight with great exchanges of blows. Either of them stopped hitting each other. Kokabil, on the other hand, was very excited to be having this battle. Every blow he received, despite having his face hurt, was smiling with great satisfaction from this great fight. They both collided their fists, creating a shockwave that made most of those still fighting slightly lose their stability. Kokabil felt his entire arm go numb after colliding with the red dragon's fist. It's amazing, you know. I never thought this would go so well, haha. Kokabil laughed with excitement. On the one hand, the red dragon didn't respond and hit the cadre's abdomen, causing him to spit blood. Kokabil again threw himself at the Security, and both returned to exchange each blow. Issei/Azrael was very tired to continue fighting this fight. He had to admit it because his brother was much stronger than before, but he still had a long way to go before he could surpass him. But she still wasn't used to fighting with her human body. It was very different from what it was like using her angel powers. But she shouldn't depend too much on her original powers. So they both continued fighting. Fred was very defensive because Zenobia and Kiba were holding back the Mad Priest. Despite this, Fred used one of the abilities of the many fragments of this new Excalibur. And moving much faster, he hit Kiba and Zenobia, pushing them as far away as possible. I'm not going. I'll surrender until I get my revenge. Standing up, Kiba looked at Priest Fred, who laughed maniacally. Meanwhile, Valper approached the Gremory Knight. You're still looking for revenge? Hey, well, take this. Your friend's prayers weren't worth anything after all. That? What you heard, kid? Just like you and all your friends, they weren't even good enough. After the church kicked me out, they used my same experiment in the same way. Hypocrites, although of course they managed to synthesize the prayers without having to kill, so you're saying everything we went through was just a charade. Kiba would take the ruby that contained his friend's prayers, while squeezing it tightly. Don't feel like an Isaiah anymore. We never regret saving you. Suddenly, the spirits of his friends appeared and began to appear around Kiba, who began to say various words of encouragement to him, and it was then that Kiba heard Rias's words. Yuto, come on, show who you are and what a Gremory Knight does. Hearing his mistress's words, Yuto Kiba looked back at Valper. Valper, I know my friends, we will show you our faith. Balance Breaker, Sword of Betrayer. A great glow spread throughout Koh Academy, halting Kokabil and Issei's fight. Those who looked at that place saw Kiba materializing a sword. But with several differences, they had letters carved in red and others in white. Oh, that's a miracle, Issei thought as he watched that sword that Kiba formed. The Gremory Knight attacked the father but ended up colliding with Fred's sword, but Zenobia also appeared and attacked the crazy priest with her Durandal. A fight with great exchanges of blows, but in the end Fred ended up losing since Kiba destroyed the Excalibur. In the end only Valpa remained. It can't be, it's supposed that both energies are impossible to mix unless Valpa was brutally pierced by Kokabil, who moved away from Issei and threw a spear of light at him while he was simply beginning to float in the sky. You're very clever, Valpa. But well, what can you do? Her smile didn't make a very good impression on Issei, who stood a few feet away from her, ready to continue his assault. What Valpa is saying is true. That sword you have, yes? Duda would be impossible, to say the least. It would never be possible to create it using both energies. But well, Michael is doing well. What do you mean? Zenobia asked. I think I missed that one, haha. Well, yes. After the Great Faction War, not only did the Mao die, but Elohim himself also ended up dead. That's impossible. Asia couldn't take it anymore and fainted after receiving that information, while Zenobia lost all her willpower to continue fighting. The rest of the remaining devils were completely motionless, and didn't know how to react to this information. What's going on here? Before he could finish his prayer, Kokabil received a strong and powerful blow to the stomach, causing him to spit up a large amount of blood. That's the least of it. Kokabil, right now I'm your rival. I don't care if God died in that war. Kokabil was forced to back away, taking a safe distance. And he looked at the security. This is definitely exciting. Jed, do you really think this is exciting? Another voice appeared, and the barrier covering the entire academy was finally destroyed. From there, a powerful white glow appeared, and another almost identical armor also appeared. This one was a beautiful white color with blue gems embedded in it. What stood out most about this armor were its beautiful blue wings. Hakuryuku. Perhaps you were drawn by the power of the red dragon. Hakuryuku didn't respond and attacked Kokabil. Kokabil couldn't react to the gigantic speed at which he moved. Grabbing him and slamming him into the ground, Hakuryuku took distance, and Kokabil attacked with a spear of light, his wings emitting a glow. Divide. The spear disappeared completely, and Kokabil lost all his strength. Without further ado, the Hakuryuku attacked him, knocking him out. Standing at a safe distance, the two celestial dragons faced each other. Rias, what's happening? Sona and her nobility arrived and saw Rias, who was still looking at both armors in the sky. Sona, the Hakuryuku, and the Security are here. The eyes of the heiress and the rest of the nobility blinked, and were in complete shock and terror at seeing them in the skies. It's been a while, Drake. I'm glad to know you're awake. Same here to Albion. It would be a shame to fight now. Since your carrier is exhausted, it will be for the next time when we don't see each other. Both celestial dragons spoke as the two carried their gazes shifted. Their auras were released, causing everyone in the area to suffocate. Security Hakuryuku. Chapter 14. It's good to see you back, Azrael. What do you want now, Azazel? Can I visit my little brother? That's not the point here, and you know it. Letting out a sigh, Azazel simply didn't know how to deal with his younger brother. He was staring at him with a blank expression. After all, his younger brother had always been so neutral, which made it difficult for him to talk to him. Well, not much. In fact, I already know that you are the Security of this era, Azazel said. And, well, even though I know you're the Security, I want to talk to you about something very important. It's going to happen in 2 days, although I think you already know that. Yes, I know. He wasn't an idiot, no. In fact, he knew exactly what Azazel meant. After defeating Gabriel, he didn't just insult him and even slap him hard for killing his father in the end. Penemu also appeared, who was the one who told him everything. And who was she who told Gabriel who Hyodo Issei really was? Now he was in the sight of not only the fallen but also the angels. Well, although I think I have to tell you that after Kokabil's attack there will be a meeting of biblical factions to talk about what happened. Azazel, I already know that. I'm not an idiot. Get straight to the point. Sai, what I mean is I want you to go to the meeting. Even the Hakuryuku is going to. I want you to be part of the alliance. Raising an eyebrow, Issei/Azrael continued. Listen, Azazel, I would like to tell you that if I were to go and see my brothers, believe me, if I go, I will have a fight against everyone on that very day, and I remind you that the angels are the ones who hate me the most. I understand, but I really need your help. If this happens as I've planned, things could change for the factions. Narrowing his eyes, Azrael turned around as he began to walk away. Before Azazel could say anything, Azrael said, "I'll see what I do." Then he simply disappeared from that place, leaving Azazel standing there while he let out a laugh and turned around and also left that place. In heaven, more specifically in the seventh heaven, right where only seraphim could be, Gabriel the Archangel was in the beautiful Garden of Eden, sitting under a tree, thinking about everything that had happened to her brother, who is still alive. How was it possible? She herself saw him die, and he is there, alive, living like a normal human. There were no more words to say. She felt no hatred. In fact, she didn't hate him. She was angry about everything her brother had done. She didn't even try to talk or explain why he did it, because he killed her father in the end. She just saw his expressionless face. Gabriel. Hearing his call, she turned around to see her older brother standing there looking at her. "Is something wrong, Michael? You can't fool me. Gabriel, you're thinking about Azrael, right?" "I'm thinking about how it's possible that he's alive." Sighing, "Sister, you know how you and I, Azrael is the only archangel who can possibly not die. But everything we saw had been destroyed." "I know," Michael said. "But maybe it was Father who gave him back his life." "Hey," smiling, "you see, maybe I don't know much, but I'm sure that Father revived him before dying, don't you think?" "But why?" "Who knows? Then every father always acted in a mysterious way." Michael would begin to walk away from Gabriel, who turned his gaze towards him, and, "Michael, Eris, when you see him," Michael would stop in his tracks, turn around, and look at his sister Gabriel. Not the layers, just nothing. Saying that for the last time, Michael left there, leaving Gabriel alone, who could not say anything more than simply look towards the place where Michael was. 2 days had passed, and on the day of the parent-teacher conference, things were pretty much just about the same. On the day of the conference, Azrael/Issei had to endure his parents, who were completely filming him. He was embarrassed by this display of parental love. He had never felt so embarrassed before. Finally, Rias's family, or rather her father, mother, and brother, along with the maid, arrived. His expression changed radically to a more serious one, and above all, higher in his defense. Upon feeling the powers of the maid and Sir Chest. After all, he had heard several numbers of the current Maos. Who among the 4 great Satans who were in power, among them the one who stood out the most was none other than Sir Chest Gremory, or Lucifer, who was the most powerful supreme class demon of the 4 current Maos, surpassing even the descendants of the original Maos. Although his attitude was quite kind, and above all, how to say it, he was a snitch, but also despite having that silly smile on his face, Azrael knew something. This guy was a great danger. He had no doubt that his power surpassed him completely. Even in his best moment, when he was still in heaven, he would surely kill him. But when he looked at the brown-haired woman who was the mother of Rias and Sir Chest, his expression changed to a more melancholic one. Mum couldn't stand it anymore. Rias's scream was enough to make him stop thinking about that. He lifted his head slightly and saw Rias running up. While the Demon King and his father and mother simply watched, Izumi quickly left, leaving only the brunette standing up. "Ah well, I'll go to sleep. It was a pleasure meeting you, Venelana-san, Zyotaka-san, and Sir Chest-san, and also Grafia-san." "Oh, you're leaving now, son. It's too early." "Don't worry, Oka-san. I'm just tired from today." Saying that for the last time, Azrael climbed the stairs, out of sight of everyone else. As he reached the top, he saw Rias and Izumi talking to each other. "Oh," I said. "Hump, is something wrong, Gremory?" "Well, I actually wanted to know something, if you don't mind telling me." Raising an eyebrow in curiosity, he sat on the floor and looked at her. "What would it be?" "Well, why did you refuse to join my nobility? Or so Well, the reason would be something simple, and it's easy. I already belong to a faction." "Huh? Since when, Oni-chan?" "It would have been a long story for a while, and I don't have the courage to tell it right now, and if you'll excuse me, I'm sleepy and would like to get some sleep." Before they could say or do anything, Issei entered his room and closed the door so no one would bother him. Rias, Sir Chest, had also arrived. Though he didn't hear anything, he said to Rias and Izumi, "Yes, Oni-sama, I think it's time you freed your other bishop." Rias's eyes widened in relative surprise. "Are you sure, Oni-sama? If you laugh, it's time for your other bishop to come out, and I'm not saying it like your brother, but like the Mao Lucifer." Seeing Sir Chest's expression, Rias nodded and, "It's okay, Mao-sama." It was already daytime, and now all the members of the Occult Club were present. In front of a large door covered with papers, or rather, talismans, were Kiba, Kaneko, Rias, Akeno, Izumi, Asia, and the newest member of the group, Zenobia Quarta, who was the other knight. Okay, let's go now. Rias took the talismans while releasing her demonic aura, and the talismans fell to the ground. She continued to open the door and, Kaya! A scream was heard in the room where everyone quickly directed their search. What are you doing out here? I don't like people. Calm down, it's me, Rias, it's time to get out of there. Rias approached the coffin in the middle of the room, and when she opened it, everyone was surprised to see. Huh! It's another girl, Izumi said. Izumi came closer to look at the vampire, who was scared just like Zenobia. In fact, it's not her, it's he. That? You're saying she's not her, and she's him, said Zenobia. That's right, Gasper, introduce yourself. They are the new members of my nobility, Rias had said to Gasper, who raised his gaze slightly. There are many Jaya. How scary. Hey, are you really a man? Zenobia will get dangerously close to the vampire. Who? She got scared and then her eyes glowed and she disappeared. Huh? What happened? He was here a moment ago, said Izumi. I hate being with people. Sighing, this is going to be harder, Rias said. Night had already fallen in the beautiful city of Kuoh, where a gigantic barrier was currently being erected at the academy. Outside and inside the barrier, 3 mini armies of at least 50 demons, fallen demons, and angels were gathered. Today was going to be an important day for the biblical faction, who would hold a crucial meeting to resolve the issues caused by Kokabil. In that attempt to form a biblical war, they knew how delicate things were after the death of not only the original Mao, but also the biblical god Elohim himself. With all this, the respective faction leaders were ready to begin the meeting at the Occult Club. The younger devils who survived that attack during Kokabil's attempt. The Citri and the Gremory were nervous about a possible war breaking out. And not only that, but there was also the hacker Yuku, who was the one who interfered, and knowing that he was a member of the Fallen, fear would eat away at each and every one of the leaders, who did not count on their predestined rival, the Securudii, whose whereabouts are unknown at this moment. They searched and searched but never found the whereabouts of the Securudii, but nothing didn't even know where to start looking, although Rias and Izumi had suspicions who the Securudii could be, and that was none other than their own brother Hyodo Issei. And if so, he hoped he was on the right side. Okay, you can come in now, it's time to start this meeting. Grafia looked at Sona and Rias, who nodded. And they began to follow the maid, who guided them until they were in the room where the faction leaders were. Right now of the Angels of Heaven were Michael, official leader of the Army of Heaven and current leader of his respective faction, Gabriel, the Messenger of Heaven, as well as Shidu Irenia, who crossed glances with Zenobia. On the side of the Fallen was Azazel, and behind him was the cadre of Grigori Penemu and a boy with albino hair who was known as the Hacker Yuku. At the end of part of Hell, there were Serchest Lucifer and Seraphil Leviathan. Both are the brothers of Rias and Sona respectively. Welcome, Rias and Sona. Please find a spot and settle down when called by me or Seraphil. I understand, Mao-sama. Both heiresses stood at the other end of the Occult Club, followed by their nobility. Each and every one had a different expression, but each had a single idea in mind, and that was for everything to turn out well. Well, I think it's time we started this meeting. Wait, Serchest, someone is still missing. Who is Azazel? Who is not obviously the Securudii. With that last word, the doors of the Occult Club opened, and everyone turned their gaze. Gabriel Penemu's eyes widened at the sight of him walking in so calmly. Michael, for one, maintained a neutral, intrigued expression. Meanwhile, the mouse Serchest and Seraphil grew more serious than usual. You finally arrived, Issei-kun. I thought you weren't coming. Sighing, how annoying. Let's finish this once and for all. I don't want to be here for too long. UHG. I had forgotten what you really look like, Issei. Azazel smiled tensely at Issei's dark expression. He couldn't take his eyes off the cadre, who turned slightly and looked at the rest of the leaders, clapping. Okay, now let's get this meeting started once and for all. What Azazel said made everyone focus their attention on the cadre, who was laughing despite the fact that Issei was staring at him intently, although more than one swore that he would kill him at any moment. Although Penemu and Gabriel couldn't help but laugh slightly without a doubt, despite the years, Azrael/Issei never changes. The meeting of the biblical factions was well started. Things are just beginning for the factions, and the two celestial dragons are just starting the beginning of a great change. Chapter 15. We might as well get this meeting started. Sir Chess spoke, who was ready to begin. They were all gathered, the Sekiryutai and the Hakuryuku. Each and every one of them looked in the room at the two celestial dragons with different thoughts on the part of the Mao, Lucifer and Leviathan, who were willing to negotiate the peace treaty. Because if Azazel knew the two celestial dragons and they were in his faction and a possibility of war broke out, he knew that they were not capable of winning, at least not for the moment. Michael was a very separate case. He looked at the Sekiryutai in a more analytical way, the expression of the red dragon and certainly his attitude, like the hatred of the meetings, made him remember Azrael. Rias and Sona, can you give me the reports you had in battle against Kokabil? Yes, Sir Chest-sama. Both heiresses approached and took out the folders containing all the information about the incident. They began to explain it, but they weren't. Before Kokabil's attack, we had an incident with a group of renegade fallen angels who claimed to be under Azazel's command. Although the threat of the fallen angels disappeared afterward, we had another problem with Kokabil. The first thing was to find out about the theft of the Excalibur fragments, and the union of the exorcists who informed us of what had happened. Sona took the floor, and one night when we were investigating, a priest named Fred appeared and began attacking us due to circumstances. We were able to help the mouse Sir Chest Lucifer to have his support in combat, but if it weren't for the intervention of the Sekiryutai and the Hakuryuku, we wouldn't have been able to emerge unscathed from that battle. After finishing his explanation, both Seraphal and Michael turned their gaze towards Azazel, who seemed to be relaxed at all times. Gabriel and Penemy were not so surprised. In fact, it was normal for Azazel to always act so carefree about these political issues. Is that true, Azazel? If it's all true, there was a group of fallen angels sent in search of sacred gear owners, but in the end I found out that they were killing sacred gear users until the Interferium does something. Pointing at Issei, who narrowed his eyes. Everyone looked at Issei, who, seeing the looks, only one thought passed through his head. Drag then made me remember to hit Azazel. Noted, partner. Sigh, if I was the one who stopped those fallen angels, not because I wanted to but more because they attacked me, he answered. Good. Sir Chest nodded. You have something to explain, Azazel. Yes, Kokabil did it all behind my back. Is that your answer, Azazel? Michael said. Yes, in fact, I already knew that Kokabil was planning something behind my back. And I was following him all the way to Kuoh. So if you knew it was going to happen, why didn't you interfere and stop it before it happened? Seraphal said. I actually sent Vala to stop him, but someone else got there first and managed to cause a lot of damage. Besides, you shouldn't worry anymore. Kokabil is locked up and won't cause any more problems. After his brief explanation, each of the leaders looked at each other. So you're saying you have no control over your own faction? Michael said. In fact, there are many in my faction who hate me because they are angry that we were the first to retreat in the biblical faction war millennia ago. Sighing, I understand that many lives were lost in that war. We had to do a lot of things after Father's death. And having to deal with the heavenly system is a lot. We're the same. My faction, after the entire Civil War, has been on the verge of extinction since the Civil War, as if the biblical war weren't enough already. Well, to celebrate, we formed a peace treaty between our factions. You are very desperate to form the Azazel Treaty, why? Sir Chest said. It's very easy to answer, Sir Chest. After the war in my faction there are very few of us left, too many. We would say that we are barely 10,000 in total compared to before, and unlike you, I do not have the same reincarnation system as the angels and demons. And if we enter a war we would lose something that Kokabil did not understand. Everyone nodded. In fact, it was a very simple issue. In the biblical factions they have their own system of creating demons and angels. Due to the very low birth rate that demons have, they took a measure of creating evil pieces that served as a method of reincarnation. It did not matter if the human lay dead, although of course there was a time limit to be able to reincarnate him. There were two options. One was that the user was already alive, and the other was if you were on the verge of death or dead, the pieces could reincarnate them as demons, giving them the same qualities as demons that, depending on which pieces you are, be it a pawn, knight, rook, bishop or queen. And therein lies the hatred of the other deities of the underworld and heaven, as well as the hatred of the angels. The only difference is that, instead of using chess pieces, they use a deck of cards to reincarnate humans. But like demons and angels, they have their own weaknesses. The reincarnated also inherit the same weaknesses, against sacred weapons or dark magic, as well as falling for sin, is a valid point at him. Suddenly the whole place stopped freezing, the entire Citri entourage and most of Rias's pieces. Except for Rias, who had her hand on Issei's shoulder, and then there would be Zenobia and Irina as the leaders who weren't frozen. Just like the Hakuryuku. What happened? Apparently they used the power of the half-vampire to freeze everyone. We're under attack, Sir Chest said, and from the sky, several magic circles began to form in the sky, and from there came several humans in robes. They were magicians. Oh well, it seems the meeting will have to be postponed due to unwanted guests. The Hakuryuku spoke. Vala is right, we must stop the magicians first, and help the half-vampire at the same time. Oni-sama, let me go. Gasper and Kaneko are my servants. As soon as you get close, they'll kill you. Be seen by the magicians. I hate to say it, but he's right, Issei said. As soon as they see you, you'll be targeted and you'll die. So what are you doing, Oni-sama? What if we kill him? I think Vala. No, I would never kill one of my servants. Rias looked at Vala in a very annoyed way, although the albino was not intimidated by this. In fact, there is another way to help a half-vampire, Azazel said with his arms crossed. And that is that to slightly control his power, he must drink the blood of a specific dragon from the Sekiryutai. Issei sighed, and knowing what Azazel truly wanted, he had no choice but to look at Rias, who seemed to be begging him to help her. Damn, he thought, and looked at you. I'll help you, thanks Issei. You're welcome now. Looking at Azazel. What's the plan? A smile spread across the cadre's face as he finally told the whole plan, or more or less what he had to. It was easy and somewhat simple. Azazel gave Issei a kind of bracelet that prevents Gasper from losing control of his powers. Issei and Rias were both transported in a magic circle courtesy of the Leviathan Seraphil, and finally, Azazel set his sights on Vala. Well worth it because you don't go and have fun with them. Humph, okay. Accepting the request, Vala walked to the window, and the wings of his dividing divine appeared. Vala began his assault on the mages, who didn't hesitate and attacked him. But even so, they didn't manage to cause any damage. This is pathetic, Vala whispered. While still in the occult club room, Sir Chest, like Azazel, Penemu, Gabriel, Michael, and Seraphal, managed to take cover in time from a surprise attack. How long have you been lying, Mouse? Recognizing the female voice, both Seraphal and Sir Chest changed their expressions to a more surprised and annoyed one. That voice, Katera. Both Seraphal and Sir Chest looked up at the sky and saw her. She was a stunningly beautiful woman with somewhat dark skin, wearing glasses, long hair and a ponytail, an enviable figure, and enormous breasts. So you're still alive, Katera. You were supposed to die in the Civil War. Sir Chest was the one who spoke. Oh, but look at that fake Mao, Lucifer and Leviathan. Huh! They've really come since our last time, haven't they, Seraphal? Completely ignoring Sir Chest, Katera laid her gaze on the current Mao. Seraphal simply frowned and took a step forward. I'll take care of her, Sir Chest, I don't want anyone to interfere. Sir Chest nodded, and Seraphal spread her demon wings and took flight to be right near Katera. It's been a long time, Katera-chan. Same here, Seraphal. Both demons had their own story in the past. Seraphal Citri and Katera Leviathan, direct descendant of the original Mao Leviathan. Both were friends and rivals where their powers were brutally powerful. In their youth, these two were always fighting to have the title of the strongest woman in the underworld, a title that Graphia won. Seraphal controls ice, and Katera, unlike her predecessor, she does not handle ice or fire and is an expert in magic, unlike Seraphal, who could even freeze the entire underworld if she wanted to. Shall we begin? Katera asked. Yeah. Both demons charged their first attacks against the other. Seraphal launched several ice spikes, causing the Mo to defend herself with a magic circle. Then she launched a fire magic attack, but it was easily repelled by Seraphal, who charged against the Descendant. In the end, both collided against each other, beginning a struggle battle, while their auras came out of both. So you're part of the fallen Issei? No, in fact, let's say that Azazel is an old acquaintance. On the other side of campus, Issei and Rias were walking through the hallways ready to save Gasper. Issei had felt the demonic power of Katera and Seraphol from a distance. The power of those two was undoubtedly something otherworldly. However, it seems that the current Maos are monsters, and now he knows why Azazel is somewhat terrified of him. It's here, Issei informed. In front of them was a door to the room where Kaneko and Gasper were. They looked at each other, and when they opened the door they were attacked by some mages, but Rias attacked with her Hakai no Chikara power, disintegrating one of the mages. And Issei hit one with the boosted gear, killing him in the process. Rias Bucho, I'm sorry. Kaneko apologized. Don't worry, Kanino, nobody knew this would happen. Rias approached and freed Kaneko from her magical bonds, and her gaze passed on Gasper, who was crying. Gasper. Issei approached and cut his finger, and blood began to flow out. Take this, baby. I don't like blood. What kind of vampire are you? Issei asked. Gasper refused to drink the blood because he didn't like the taste. Something Issei/Azrael found odd, since he was the first vampire in history, or what he knew, who didn't drink blood. Strange. But he didn't care what the vampire cared about either. So, giving them a few words of encouragement, the vampire looked at the brown-haired boy with admiration, and then took the blood, and his eyes shone. A magic circle formed where the leaders were still watching Seraphol and Katera's fight. And from there came Issei, Kaneko, Gasper, and Rias. Oh, they arrived just in time, said Penemu. I see everything went well, huh? Azazel spoke. Yes, we were very lucky. Rias! A scream came from behind, and turning around, the entire Gremory entourage, and Sona's entourage also came running towards where they all were. I see you're better now. Rias, what's happening? Sona asked. They attacked us by surprise, but Rias couldn't continue her explanation until she heard a loud bang. Everyone looked and saw Seraphol half injured with several parts of her clothes completely destroyed, even leaving her bare chest visible for everyone to see. But just like Seraphol, Katera was the same. One-sama! Sona shouted worriedly. For his part, Issei only watched as the Leviathan descendant was being covered by several snakes. Ophis. Issei thought with a frown. Chapter 16. The battle in the Koh Academy between Seraphol Leviathan or Citri and Va Kateria Leviathan was completely a total destruction. Seraphol easily evaded Kateria's attempted strike, launching a kick right at her ribs. The Leviathan looked slightly sore from the impact of the blow. She tried to attack her, however. Seraphol was waiting for her. How slow! Seraphol muttered as he spun around, sneaking behind the Leviathan. He then launched a jab straight to the spine, causing the Leviathan to scream in pain. Seraphol would create an ice sword. Faced with this back attack, Kateria gritted her teeth tightly and with her staff in her hands, blocked the attack faster than Seraphol had imagined. Kateria launched a kick, pushing the Mao away. You've improved a lot over the years, Kateria-chan, Seraphol said, taking a little distance. You're still the same as you were millennia ago, Seraphol, but now you'll see my true power, false Mao Leviathan. Several purple snakes began to surround the Leviathan descendant. This caused two different reactions. On one hand, the other leaders furrowed their eyebrows upon recognizing those snakes, while Issei/Azrael's eyes narrowed as he watched that scene. Ophis, he thought as he watched the scene before his eyes. How the hell did they get her power? She's not supposed to care about the world. Ophis Ouroboros, the dragon god of infinity. No one knows exactly how Ophis was born. There were rumors among the dragons that she was born through the void of infinity, the dimensional gap. Like Ophis, there was only one other dragon god, and that was the Great Red himself, the dragon god of dreams. And he was the most powerful being in the world. Is Drake watching this? Yes, Ibu, Drake mentally responded to his wielder. This is weird even for me that Ophis is helping these demons. Do you know anything about why he's acting now? The confusion on both sides was very noticeable. But they both continued watching the fight. Seraphol was on high alert for the first time. And Kateria simply smiled as her skin slowly began to turn blue. Now, moving faster than anyone expected, Kateria appeared in front of Seraphol, who was surprised by the swift movement of the Leviathan descendant. Extending his right arm, it was covered by the Leviathan descendant's aura. He launched a powerful blow that was blocked by Seraphol, who let out a grunt of pain and looked at the descendant, who smiled arrogantly while releasing his demonic energy combined with the Ophis snake. My turn, Seraphil. Heh. A dangerous smile appeared on the Mao's face. As she let out her demonic energy, it flowed throughout her body. Everyone in the room, without exception, began to feel cold. The temperature was dropping incredibly, while Seraphil's eyes glowed a deep blue. But Kateria seemed unaffected by the change in temperature. This is the power of one of the current Mao. For the first time, and for the first time ever, I saw something like this. If she could even lower the temperature like that, I didn't want to imagine what she would do if she could really destroy the sky herself. This generation is incredibly strong. Kateria and Seraphil both attacked each other, colliding their fists, creating a shockwave. They both began to exchange large amounts of blows. Without any mercy, each impact of their blows could be heard throughout the room. Seraphil launched a side kick, but it was easily repelled by Kateria, who smiled and punched the Mao in the liver. Spitting blood, Seraphil furrowed his eyebrows and began to get annoyed. Or not, this is very bad. Serches thought in panic at what he was seeing. If this continues, Seraphil will freeze the entire academy. Even worse, he will create his own ice age. Thinking of all the possibilities, he looked at Azazel and Penemu, who seemed to be preparing for something, but what? Perhaps? His gaze traveled to the white dragon, who was preparing for the same. Seraphil attacked Kateria with several ice stakes, being narrowly dodged by the Descendant, who was about to throw the blow towards his face. Strike to the front. Seraphil's mind began to simulate. What could happen? Easily do upwards. Attack below the lumbar area. Preparing for the counterattack. Seraphil easily deferred to the blows of the Descendant. An uppercut, he mentioned. Then a low kick, easily and obviously predictable. Right leg up blocked. Open palms hit the chest, pushing away the. Seraphil's mind devised everything and attack of rage. And without thinking, attacks from the front. Turn to the left, hit in the face. And stabs. Conclusion. Seraphil would let out a sigh. Victory assured. Seraphil opened his eyes and, running his face to the side, easily dodging Kateria's blow. Trying to attack her with another blow, Seraphil threw an uppercut to her chin, stunning her. She quickly recovered and threw a kick. Seraphil would raise his leg, blocking her attack. And with his palms he would hit her right in the chest, pushing her away. Damned! Without a second thought, Seraphil launched himself at her. Just as he was about to launch his attack, Seraphil spun to the left, striking her in the face and creating an ice spike. She stabbed him in the heart, instantly killing her Descendant. Letting out a Seraphil sigh, he began to lower his demonic aura and then descended. Amazing, Issei said in his thoughts. The current Iba Maos are undoubtedly strong, but lose. Turning his face, he would look at Serchest. He is on another level of power. Fui, that was quite entertaining while I wasn't stretching my muscles. Seraphil would approach the group smiling. Good. Michael spoke up. I see things turned out well for now. Yes. Serchest nodded. Apparently, Azazel, you'll finally have what you've been longing for. Azazel smirked as his gaze traveled to Issei and Valle, who were both staring at each other intensely. Everyone without exception looked at both carriers of the celestial dragons. The great hostility that both were emitting was completely terrifying to everyone. The most brutal and cruel fight in all of history. Despite both celestial dragons being sealed in sacred gears, their carriers have always fought, continuing this rivalry since ancient times. To see who of the two was more powerful, in the battles won, Albion fills a scoreboard of 45 and Drake has 45 equals, while the times they did not face each other were for different reasons. Issei would take the first step forward as the reddish aura surrounded his entire body and materialized the boosted gear in his left arm. He stopped in his tracks and descended to the ground. Red, white, both celestial dragons spoke and the eyes of both carriers shone brightly. Balance breaker scale male. Drake's voice echoed throughout the place. Issei's body was completely covered by armor identical to Valle's, with the difference that it was red with green gemas. The tension in the air was completely felt as both wearers looked at each other's faces. Since the first time they saw each other's faces without the armor. Both Issei and Valle saw each other with great differences, and above all, rage was born in both of them when they saw each other's faces, as if their blood had compelled them to hate each other. and the rivalry grew just by looking at each other, evident in the glances they exchanged at the meeting and the times either of them concealed their feelings and looked into each other's eyes. Now they were face to face, or not. Azazel's eyes widened as he finally discovered why both of them were releasing so much hostility. The blood of Vala and Azrael, both celestial dragons, moved much faster than anything else, creating a large air current. Ahaha, aha! They both screamed and threw their respective punches, connecting with each other's fists. This created a massive wind wave that destroyed much of the Academy's ground. The red-white energy was brutally intense and was disintegrating the entire ground. Gruh! Both of them let out loud roars, as if they were wild animals. And they began to exchange large amounts of blows at each other. Issei, as a valley, didn't cover himself, but took the blows from each other directly. Divide, boots, the boosted gear and divine dividing sounded, and as one tried to divide the strength of his opponent, the other quickly increased his power. The blows of both were connected to each other's faces, destroying the other's breastplate a little. Unfolding the dragon wings courtesy of the boosted gear, both Issei and Vala began their battle in the skies. The only thing that could be seen in the skies was a large red line and a white one pushing each other. This is very, very bad, Azazel thought. If this continues, both of them will destroy everything, not to say the human world, with this fight. Azazel began to devise a plan. Damn father, why the hell did you create Lucifer and Azrael? Both dragons from the skies crashed their heads into each other, destroying their helmets. Their faces showed identical expressions as blood flowed from their foreheads. They butted heads again and again, causing each other to grow older. Divide, boots, they both separated and Issei launched a dragon shot towards Vala, who responded with the same attack. This time it was Vala's turn to attack him with several lightning attacks, surprising Akeno, because those lightning magic attacks were identical. However, seeing the attack coming towards Azrael/Issei quickly created a defense magic circle blocking the attack. I can play the same game too! His eyes shone and a magic circle appeared in his hands, and then he launched a powerful water magic attack towards Vala. Vala would easily dodge the attack and set his sights on Issei. They both looked at each other. Neither of them said a word to this. Instead, Issei uncovered his face, just like Vala. You are undoubtedly strong, my rival, despite being a human. Your handling of your sacred gears is very incredible, which makes me think that you had training, but from whom? A smile formed on Issei's face. Everyone has their secrets, Hakuryuku. But answer this question for me. Issei narrowed his eyes. Tell me the truth. Your energy isn't completely human, which makes me think you're a hybrid of human and demon, but which one? The strange, familiar feeling Issei felt when he saw Vala was very strange. All of this, even the reason for this fight, was pure instinct, as if his entire being compelled him to fight him. And the only one he was like that with and had this rivalry with was Joe. I see you realized that well, after all, he couldn't keep it up for long. Vala would unfurl several demon wings, surprising all the demons as angels. Except Azazel. Apparently Azazel already knew that he was a hybrid. His gaze traveled to Azazel, and then he would put his gaze in front of him. I am Vala Lucifer, and I am the great-grandson of the original Lucifer. To everyone's surprise, all the supernatural beings were present. This is impossible. A descendant of the original Lucifer still lives, and it's the Hakuryuku of this era. A miracle. The leaders were surprised by this revelation, while Issei frowned. Now I see why I felt this strong instinct to fight him. He hadn't even bothered to look at the other leaders. Damn you, Lucifer, even dead you're still the same pain in the ass to me. Azrael and Lucifer before Lucifer fell from the heavens. He was one of the most troubled older brothers of all. But he had a deep and profound rivalry with his younger brother Azrael, which was due to the blood that ran through both of them. That of the original demon and Lucifer's dragon blood, which caused this dangerous rivalry to be born. They had destroyed large parts of heaven and the human world while sinking the famous kingdom of Atlantis. Hyodo Issei, you are undoubtedly a formidable opponent, but you need to be even stronger to continue this battle. Issei didn't respond, and then the Hakuryuku would fly away while Issei just watched. I think it's time to sign that peace treaty. If the descendants of the previous Mao are still alive and are receiving help from Ophis, it's time to join forces for a possible war. That's according to Sir Chest. It would be best to form an alliance. Good now, Issei. Trying to look for Issei with her eyes, he was no longer there, and then she looked for her Penemu's sister and best friend. In a clearing within the woods, Issei was wiping the blood from his forehead and washing his hands. Get out of there, I know you're hiding. Coming out of the darkness, Penemu was carrying some bandages on her hands and would approach. I see you're still living here after being all hurt. It's the only place I like, it makes me feel calm. I'm glad to hear it. Sitting on the floor, she extended her hand to him. Give me your arm, I'll heal you. Like we used to do before after your training. Seeing this with some distrust, he handed her his arm, and was mistaken for a Penemu, who began to sell him. Why are you doing this? After everything I did to you. She would stop and then simply look into Issei's eyes. The brunette remained completely fixed on the beautiful red eyes of the cadre, who simply continued with the bandage. You know, Issei, that despite everything you did to me, I never hate you, even though I always wanted to hate you. The memories of when we were in heaven invaded my mind. Even when I fell, you hugged me, even though we were different. You're not bad, you're just a person who doesn't want to open up to others. Issei didn't say a single word as he let Penemu bandage him. It is also the older sister's duty to take care of her silly Ototo. Because I feel like this will bring me a lot of trouble. He growled internally. But you're an idiot too, bitch, brat. They both looked at each other's faces and then simply laughed. How long had it been since they'd had a conversation like that? After all, it had been millennia, but above all, they were brothers. They stayed like that for a few more minutes, enjoying the peaceful place they were in. You know, I'm curious about something? Penemu mentioned. What about? About this place, because you never showed it to our other sisters. I had enough to deal with over 1,060 sisters who were always giving me affection, or worse yet, bathing me or feeding me, and enough of being my older sister's plaything. Oh, how cruel you are. He feigned pain. But when I found this place, I thought, why not introduce this to my favorite sister? So I'm your favorite sister, huh? She smiled, mocking Azrael. Die, Issei said. Besides, it's better to go back. I think you're right. Penemu nodded. Let's go. She looked at Issei once more and he simply nodded, and they both simply started walking away from that place. What the hell? Why are you here? It was the cry of Rias along with the members of the citrus nobility who were totally consumed, as well as the Gremory entourage and Issei. Goodbye, my peaceful days. Issei thought irritably. Good. After everything that happened at the peace meeting. Both Sir Chest and Seraphil agreed that I'd be their new sensei. I'll also be the group's new administrator, and will be in charge of their training completely. Azazel commented, amused, as he sat comfortably in the chair. But, Rias tried to justify an answer, but nothing came out of her mouth. Well, at least this couldn't get any worse. Issei would just leave, but then the doors open. And before you forget me, guys, I also introduce you to your new sensei. News? He tried to remain calm, but when the doors opened, none other than 3 extremely beautiful and sensual women walked in. I'm sure you already know them. They're Penemu and Gabriel. And then there's the new student, Rainier. They all bowed slightly, and Penemu turned her gaze to Issei, who simply had one thing go through his head. Damn my luck. Chapter 17. I think of all the people I know, you are one of the most irritating people I know, Azazel. Issei, who was sitting on the roof of the Koh Academy, said in a serious manner. While classes had returned to normal, the fact that everything had returned to how it was before was enough. But in reality it was something else. But also after the meeting of factions, and when the new Khaos Brigade was announced, which was being led by Ophis Ouroboros, the dragon god of infinity, things were a little more hectic in the supernatural world. And the other thing was the school issue. Just when I thought things weren't going to get any worse for Azrael/Issei, Penemu and Gabriel joined the school as teachers at the Koh Academy. Penemu, the history teacher, displayed a completely strict personality, and made those who had fetishes for difficult women completely enamored. And then there was the sweet and gentle Gabriel, who was the physical education teacher. Issei is sure of one thing. Before, almost none of the kids were that interested in physical education. And since Gabriel became the teacher, the number of students participating in sports has increased. Even the fat kids who never took physical education have also started playing sports. Conclusion: the overall academic level and the physical aspect increased. Oh, please say what you say. I'm your favorite brother from heaven. Azazel, one thing is being my older brother, which is already a pain in the ass, And another thing is being my self-proclaimed favorite brother, that's already a lot. You're not my favorite older brother. Sigh whatever you say. Ignoring what Azrael had said, Azazel stood with his arms crossed. Well, Azrael, I wanted to ask you a question. Do you agree? Of something? At that Azazel took some photos and then passed them to Issei, who, upon seeing the photos, quickly took them and began to observe them. This is? Yes. He nodded. That's how many members the Khaos Brigade currently has in its ranks, and the worst of them all so far is Ryzavin Levan, Vala's grandfather, Lucifer. Azrael frowned. I see Lucifer had a son. I'm surprised someone like him had a son. After all, he wasn't interested in starting a family, much less being with a woman. If it weren't for his interference in the human world more than once, Azrael was sure Lucifer would have slept with any human woman. In fact, he didn't even care if she was married or not, he'd take her. Of course he interfered at that time. Well, many things happened after the war, and well, you know. If I know, you don't have to make me remember it too. It wasn't so much to realize what I wanted to tell him. So who else is in on this? Not many people know about this because I have Vala as my influencer. Azazel quickly fell down upon seeing that Issei was looking at him seriously. Don't tell me you used your arcane? If I used it, I wanted to know if you were telling me the whole truth. At the time of their creation, angels were two, created by Elohim. Elohim gave the angels unique abilities to each archangel of heaven. Arcana were the abilities each angel possessed. The arcane of Azrael was the confection. Therefore, it was always used to make each human or other supernatural being reveal everything they had done. This made it easy to know whether they were going to hell or heaven. In the arcane of Lucifer, it was their desires. Therefore, they could reveal anyone's desire. You're a damn. I know. Azazel let out a sigh and then looked at his younger brother with intrigue. What do you mean you can still use your arcane? I honestly have no idea why I didn't lose it. Are you trying to hide it from me? Azrael/Issei would slightly raise his gaze, and narrowing his eyes he simply sighed. You know very well that your arcane wouldn't work on me, Azazel. Sighing shit, and I thought I still had my arcane. Azazel growled in annoyance. Well, leaving aside the fact that I don't have my arcane, tell me, Azrael, how long have you been alive? A lot. Even though I still have my angel powers, I die just like a human. Therefore, I have a lifespan, just like a human. I see it's probably a curse like father did with Samuel. Issei simply had to agree to that. After all, he wasn't a very good son, and surely before his death, he was planning from the beginning for him to kill Lucifer and Elohim. And maybe that's what father cursed him with. Didn't he have many clues about that? He even tried to find an answer. Shit, he hated it when his father liked to always do the same thing. To him, it was a complete mystery and a riddle, and he had to find the answer himself. You know how father was with this, Azazel. I know. Azazel nodded and then crossed his arms. But that aside, let's go out and have some fun. What would be fun for you? Easy, let's get drunk and go for some good Issei women, Azazel said with a smile, and then quickly erased his smile and looked at the brown-haired man who was Soria. You used it again, didn't you? I asked, receiving a nod from him. You always liked to make fun of me. Finally, school hours were over, and right now Issei was at the Occult Club. His arms crossed, he was lying on one of the couches, his thighs pillowed against Gabriel's. Gabriel never stopped stroking his hair. Why does this always happen to me? She thought with a frown as Gabriel continued to stroke her hair. Well, Issei-chan, do you want to eat something? Issei's eyes widened in panic. Oh no, don't tell me she cooked for me? His fear began to grow even greater when Gabriel pulled out 2 lunchboxes, and Issei finally noticed as he quickly stood up. Before he could run, he was quickly dragged by Gabriel, who sat him down on the couch and then put a bib on him. Okay, Issei-cha, say ah. Issei's cheeks flushed slightly, as he was stared at by all the devils in the Occult Club and by an Azazel who was bursting with jealousy upon seeing this. Is Issei-kun really flirting with Gabriel-sama so quickly? Gabriel's cheeks turned red and then he started fantasizing, which made Issei raise an eyebrow. And now what do I bite him? You really didn't notice? Drake said inside his mind. Why don't I understand you? Nothing, just leave it like that. Finally Azazel coughed falsely, attracting the attention of all the demons and angels in the place. Well, as we already know, in 2 days there will be a meeting of young demons in the underworld. And not only that, but all the young demons will stand before the demonic council and will have to tell it what their greatest wish is. Everyone nodded at what Azazel said, especially Rias. The only one who didn't understand this was Issei, but he didn't give it much thought. Besides that, you're welcome. He fixed his gaze on the redhead. Since you've already had your first experience in a ranking game, just like your brother, the rest of the Mao will set up a new ranking game. That way, you'll gain experience. I understand. Azazel looked at all the demons and then let out a sigh. You see, I'm not just informing you about this. We're also going to have another important matter in the underworld when summer vacation begins. What would that be, Azazel-sensei? Kiba asked. Well, there's going to be an important event for the biblical factions like the Nordic faction. Everyone raised an eyebrow in curiosity. The Nordic faction? Even Issei was somewhat surprised by this, since he had fallen from the sky before Lucifer and all that. A war broke out, where the angels, led by Michael, fought several wars for the followers of different pantheons. Among them were the Norse gods, led by Odin himself, the most powerful Norse god at the time, and a young Thor, who was just learning the art of combat. They were totally bloody battles where the angels of heaven managed to defeat all the deities of different pantheons, even finally stopping Zeus himself, and any god who came down to the human world to have fun with divine creation. Many archangels died in those wars, leaving only the most powerful in heaven. Gabriel, Penelope, Azazel, Azrael, Michael, Lucifer, and above all, Amenadiel. The latter was always at his father's side but didn't know much about him afterward. Will the Norse gods come to the underworld? That's right. All of this will be a very important meeting for the factions, as we'll try to get Odin's old man to form an alliance with the biblical factions, so we can finally put everything aside. Well, it seems that time has changed Odin's mind. For him to be willing to form an alliance with the angels, and especially with the fallen and demons, this is quite interesting. Issei thought, looking at everyone in the room. Well, I've heard several rumors that Odin has finally changed. Well, he stopped being the same arrogant god he was in the past and became someone wiser and easily negotiable. Oh well, then I won't have anything to worry about then. Between zero his eyes and then simply sighed. The hours were passing. Well, I also wanted to inform you, Rias. You and your entourage will begin training after your Radix game against the Citri Eris, and I'll be in charge of your training. Everyone in the room simply nodded at what Azazel said. One more thing, Azazel-sensei? What are you laughing at? I was thinking, and it's the why. Azazel understood what the Gremory Eris wanted to tell him. Letting out a sigh of annoyance, Azazel looked Rias straight in the eyes. Due to his training, it was a request from Searchits. It's also a good thing since I want to see him personally, and I'll be the one in charge of strengthening him and addressing all his weaknesses. His gaze traveled to the box where Gasper was and then to Akeno, who simply frowned. Azazel and Ezrael knew something about Akeno, and that she was a hybrid of a fallen angel and a demon, something quite interesting. She also had a large magical reserve, but she herself didn't use all of her power. On the other hand, Gasper had to undergo a more difficult training, and it was due to the fear he had when going out into the human world, and especially his problem with being surrounded by people. The thing about his cross-dressing, well, that was for later. Well, besides that, Azazel said, Searchits especially wants you to become a clan leader. He wants you to improve even more as your clan leader, and above all, he wants you to improve your powers even faster. Rias nodded and then finally gathered her finished, and everyone retired to their respective homes. While most of the members of the Gremory group began to make contracts, Gabriel returned to heaven, and instead Issei was walking towards his home, or well, that was the main idea I had. Okay, you're ready, Issei. It was said by Penemu, who was no longer wearing her teacher outfit, and was now wearing a tight combat suit, while in her two hands she held two purple light spears. Her crimson eyes were boring into Issei, who simply slightly changed his stoic expression to an annoyed one. Why do I have such bad luck? Especially with women? He grumbled internally as a large barrier covered both of them around the Koh Plaza. The look Penemu was giving him was pure emotion, while Issei's was stoic. Well, I hope you haven't become too weak, Penemu said. Because now I'm going to show you my new techniques. Let's get this over with, Penemu. Materializing the boosted gears, he simply snapped his fingers and then a boots was heard from the boosted gears. Chapter 18. Finally some inner peace. Lying on the grass, Issei, or better known as Azrael, was lying on the ground while taking advantage of the time after his little training with his beloved older sister. Azrael decided to escape a little from his family. He simply wanted to relax for a short period of time. But strangely, everything he'd done so far was turning out so well that he couldn't help but worry a little that things were turning out well. His bad luck had definitely changed, and that wasn't a good sign. How things are pretty calm, he thought to himself, and then felt a strange tickle on his back. I haven't been this calm in a long time. I must admit, it's strange to see you so relaxed after all the legends I heard about you. It was that you were one of the most ruthless angels in heaven. After Drake's word, it was strange to see such a calm and relaxed person. However, for Azrael/Issei, it was something that he was enjoying until this moment. But upon hearing that, he simply let out a half-annoyed sigh. He was known, or is culturally known, as one of the cruelest angels in the Great War of the Demons. Something that was written like that. That despite everything, he is known for his genocide against supernatural people, and if we talk about the Bible, he is known as one of the foremost powerful archangels in heaven. Yes, well, it was that same murderer fired from before. He did not give it much importance before the Great War of the biblical factions. I, along with Lucifer and Michael plus the rest of my brothers, fought wars against the other deities in the name of God, he said, looking at the cloudy sky and closing his eyes. We managed to gain territory and fame by cutting incredible routes, but certainly the pantheon of the Atuns was impossible because we faced the army of 1,000 gods against angels. Archangels like me and Lucifer could barely do anything. Strangely for him, a vague memory of a beautiful woman with long golden hair was shown right there, and he couldn't help but show a slight smile of nostalgia remembering her. Something that didn't go away for Drake. In the end, we lost and retreated. We suffered many casualties at that time. I still don't understand. It was Drake who spoke. Why was a war necessary with different pantheons? I mean, God never showed his domains. Actually, Father wanted to keep the deities controlled. He sat on the grass and pointed to the sky. Father didn't want power. In fact, in our war we managed to retain the deities of different pantheons. Father's idea was to leave humans free and for them to have their freedom, and do what they want without the divine need of the gods, thus creating the other world, enclosing all supernatural beings. True, now that I remember, certainly the gods had control of each pantheon where they dominated and hired humans. Not to mention the aberrations that Zeus created. The worst pantheon was the Greek one, which his eyes showed a great dangerous shine. I hated the Olympians all my life for breaking the rules, and I swear that of the 12 Greek gods I greatly respect Hades. He was the only god who didn't necessarily mess with humanity's side. The rest of the gods were easy to leave badly wounded, and each one represents a serious, deadly sin. If Zeus had the reputation of being a womanizer, and above all the other gods are not saved, in fact they seemed more mortal than gods. However, that ego remains in all the deities. I don't deny it, he said calmly. Even Odin was like that when he was young, and Thor, that fat wretch, was a completely unstable danger. He was so unpredictable. His nickname Thunder Berserker suits him. Did you fight him? Yes. When we were at war against the Norse to send them to the kingdom of heaven and separate the world from the supernatural, I fought against Thor, scratching his cheeks, and let's say that at that time I was only about 300 years old, but well, our battle was brutal. We had destroyed a large part of the human world, and he was strong, plus that hammer was dangerous. Being young, it was difficult to follow Thor. How did you manage to beat all of this? Drake asked calmly. I didn't win, in fact it was a tie. I used my best attack up to that point. Looking at his hands, which were surrounded by a dark aura, my zero ability along with Thor's hammer collided, creating a great hellish cataclysm, destroying half the continent, or living in what is now Norway. Wow, although I admit it's cool. You'll be able to battle Thor now. Starting to think, I guess so. What's more, I'm not at my full power yet, and I'm not even half of what I was before. And if talking about my powers from before, considering that I can use yours, I think I can even easily surpass everything else, becoming the strongest existence after the dragon gods. Suddenly Issei stood up, feeling a hostile energy being directed towards him, while a strange layer surrounded the entire field around them. Summoning the boosted Gerd, quickly stands on guard. Boots, get up, buddy! After Drake's scream, Issei's eyes opened quickly and he used his gauntlet as a shield. Boom! A huge explosion occurred in the area. Cough, my cough, shit, that murderous intent. he said with difficulty while he was on his knees and his head was dripping with blood and all his clothes were torn. It was quite a powerful attack. Even the burns are quite serious for your human body, partner. Drake spoke seriously. I know whoever attacked me used all or most of that power to kill me. Would look everywhere and you held up pretty well against the attack. Congratulations on that. A female voice sounded. Upon recognizing the voice, Issei would open his eyes slightly in surprise and then stand up and turn his body to look at her. She was a very beautiful woman, with short golden hair, beautiful golden eyes that highlighted her beauty, a fine face and a very defined and beautiful body. Above all, she wore a tight suit with her arms covered by golden armor, boots of the same style, and above all what stood out most about this woman was the symbol that the armor on her forearm had. How long has it been since we last saw each other? The woman asked, looking at him indifferently. I thought you were dead. Well, of all things, I didn't think I'd see you back, he responded with sarcasm and irony. I think you're in no position to talk. His eyes shone golden. Azrael, even with the years you're still alive and kicking. His voice sounded quite dangerous, but this time I'm going to kill you. And with a single step he disappeared from Issei's vision. Boots clank. Using the boosted gear he managed to cover himself from the woman's attack. Both began to struggle with each other, but the woman would begin to gain ground. Shit is much stronger than I thought. What's happening? That's all you have. Kicking him in the stomach, Issei flew, who rolled on the ground and quickly stood up to block another blow with his gauntlet, but he was sinking his body into the ground. Quick, partner, use balance break. After Drake's scream, Issei would react by kicking her and managing to move her a few meters away, and spreading his dragon wings he would fly towards the sky. Balance break. Activating his armor, Issei looked quickly and charging energy in his hands he launched two powerful dragon shots, being dodged by the woman, who began to run quickly and taking a huge jump. She stood in front of Issei. You are very slow. And with just that said, she launched a huge spinning kick hitting Issei's shoulder, who, letting out a groan of pain, was shot to the ground. Colliding with this, without waiting, the woman fell on a pike with both feet pointed like a spear. Pum, gah. The breastplate of the armor was completely destroyed as it spat out large amounts of blood. You are weak. She would take out a sword from a magic circle. You are not the same as before. Azrael, pointing his sword at his neck, Issei's breastplate disappeared just like the rest of his armor. Jump, smiling. Why that smile? She asked, confused. In the position you're in, I doubt you can do anything. You're right, but I just needed you to come closer. Suddenly a magic circle formed in his room while Issei with his right arm would look at the woman, and then with a snap, boom, an explosion was generated covering both and causing the woman to leave with small wounds, while Issei, idiot, that was very risky. I know, it was just the only thing that came to mind at the time, Issei would say as he stood up and looked at the woman. I even thought you would be smarter than that. She would just observe nothing more and then walk a few steps forward, but you have become weaker with time. You are not the same as before. And I guess Aphrodite sent you for my head, he said, smiling while slightly adjusting his muscles. Even so, you only missed coming to me. What stupidity are you saying? Suddenly the woman's eyes opened to look at the sky and see a strange ball of blue energy floating in the sky. What the hell? When did you do it? She would scream, looking at him. I may not be at my full power, showing his teeth, but that doesn't mean I can't use my angel powers normally. You bastard! And with that scream she would launch herself directly at him, and with her sword ready she would slash and pum. What the devil? What's wrong? Can't you hit me? Smiling slightly, Issei observed how the woman had been. The sword was a few centimeters from cutting her neck, however a strange invisible barrier was preventing the edge of the sword from reaching her neck. Something that the woman, even applying more force, could not even get closer. No matter how much force she applied, she simply did not move. Even if you use all that strength, you won't be able to touch me. Even in this state, my magic is still working. It's true that my magic is still working is a good thing, but this technique consumes a lot of mental energy. If it weren't for the boosted gear and drag, I wouldn't have been able to activate it, and not even in blue. I indirectly look at the blue sphere in the sky. I have to finish this immediately while I still have strength. Boots, 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 and without waiting for anything else, a blow was fast enough to send the woman flying. What speed! It was the only thing she thought to compose herself, and seeing how Issei began to run against her at great speed, she quickly summoned a bow and began to launch several arrows simultaneously. Seeing the danger coming, he would launch several dragon shots directly at the arrows. Boots, another increase, and this time from the front he would throw a blow, this time to the face. However, the woman would run her face to the side and throw a kick as a counterattack. But the kick would be stopped by one of Issei's arms, who with his left fist extended would throw a blow to the face of the woman, who used her bow as a shield. The two looked into each other's eyes and would not hesitate to throw arrows at her eyes, but this time Issei, taking her leg, would throw her towards the sky, which was facilitated by the woman, who spinning in the sky, and with her bow already loaded with arrows she would spin and, "Even your speed is slower, huh?" Without being able to understand it, Issei was above her with his dragon wings spread out, and with his eyes staring at her, while a strange red energy was on his finger. "Let's get this over with." A huge explosion erupted at the scene, leaving Issei in the sky, looking down at the crater as the huge curtain of smoke slowly disappeared. "It seems he's gone." Feeling the barrier lower, he looked up at the sky once more. "We're done for now, buddy. There are no more signs of life around," Drake spoke calmly. This was definitely strange. Yes, it was too strange. While somewhere in Koh the woman was looking at everything from the top of the building, letting out a sigh, she turned around and started walking towards the exit. "We'll see you soon, Azrael, and I hope you come back stronger." Cap 19. What just happened? It was the cry of Penemu, who looked at the chestnut. "I think it was a very bad idea to tell this to Penemu." "I agree with you, my friend. What a good step." "Well, it was easy to say, because you could say that wanting to avoid anyone finding out that he was in a fight against a certain person less than 10 minutes ago and not worry anyone, he went directly to his house. But for his such lovely and beautiful bad luck, and it seems that destiny likes to screw him, he ended up crossing paths with none other than Penemu." "Are you okay? Are you sure?" was her question. "If I'm okay, you don't have to worry. I've already taken care of her." "She? Oh, I think I said too much." "You don't help, but why that sudden mood change?" Between the small fear plus the fact that his older sister's mood change, Issei/Azrael was in a dilemma what to do now. "Well, I think you have to explain to me exactly what happened, don't you think?" "Oh, wait, how exactly? If let's say you tell me everything," she narrowed her eyes, "I know you forgot or are hiding things from me, and I want to know what it is that you forgot to tell me." "And what happens if I say no?" "Okay, then I'll call Gabriel and—" "Okay, I give up." Kneeling right in front of Penemu, who smiled with joy when she saw him like that, because it seems that there are things that don't change in millennia. Even though he is the angel of death, he is still her younger brother, and knows how to hurt her pride. She couldn't help but have a small memory of them in heaven with Lucifer and Michael, the three brothers fighting each other. "Things that don't change, eh?" she whispered to herself. "It would be better if we left this place, at least for now. Take a shower and we can talk comfortably in my apartment, while I prepare something to eat." "All right." Without saying another word, they disappeared in magic circles without leaving any trace. While the hours passed, now Issei was sitting at a table eating while he had Penemu in front of him drinking a glass of wine. "You can start, Ah. This will be long, he said vaguely, receiving a nod from Penemu. "I have plenty of time, after the great war of the factions, and where both my death and that of Father and Lucifer and the rest, not only did I believe I was dead, but I was in a completely black space. There was nothing. It was like infinity itself in which I stood. I didn't know what to do or what to say. I didn't think that this would bring me consequences later on." "What do you mean, Penemu? What do you know about infinite reincarnation?" "Infinite reincarnation?" She put her hand on her chin and opened her eyes. "Don't tell me you—" "That's right," he nodded. "After my death I began to reincarnate in different bodies over the years." He closed his eyes slightly. "Just not in just any body. They were the most important in human history so far." "What is it that?" "Imagine this: a being like me who was involved in all of human history with different facial features, different names. I give you a clear name." His eyes narrowed. "Napoleon, Charlemagne, Adolf Hitler, Mao Zedong, Alexander the Great, among many others of my names." Penemu's eyes widened in surprise upon hearing the names of the various beings he encountered. They were not only people of great political and military power, but their identities were clear. He was. "You caused all those wars, dictatorships, and more." She looked him straight in the eyes, while Issei just blinked and then nodded. "That's right, I'm not lying that I was involved in the world's great controversies, or stories that the world itself created. Thousands of years or millennia ago, I've been alive since the time of the first architects of the world who were forming the world. His eyes closed slightly. I was in constant wars within human history. I was even a powerful politician throughout the year and more. Why did you do it? She didn't understand. Why did you cause so much chaos over the years? Even if I wanted to tell you it's difficult, he would look at her. It's not easy to explain, but if I had to put it in an easy context, it would be. What would it be? I didn't know how to explain at this moment. Were there any questions about why he did it? Or did he just want to feel alive for once, after all being involved in all the events that caused the end of the world or war after war, layers upon layers? And he got used to living in the chaos he was in and was already feeling bored. Wasn't that exactly the question? Did he want that, or was he simply pushed by human greed over the years? I don't know what to tell you, Penemu. Honestly, what I did, I already did. He closed his eyes. Even if you get mad at me, I followed the rules of man, and I lived like a normal man, lived like one who perhaps reached the point where I always wanted more. Further? Yes, simply yes. He opened his eyes. They were totally different from what they had been in years. Penemu noticed this while looking into Issei/Azrael's eyes. There was nothing but a deep and great dark abyss that surrounded everything in its path. There was no regret for her actions. There was nothing. She lightly clenched her teeth and her hands to remember what once marked her forever, and that was the death of her former husband Tamil. The cause of everything, and yet she could not hate her younger brother Azrael. Because even if he did not say it, he left her alive at the moment he killed him in front of her eyes, and above all also in the great final part of the fight against the celestial dragons Drake and Albion. But he was not there. This caused the death of the Maus, and above all the final battle between Lucifer and God. Even before Michael arrived at the battle and defended his father, Azrael had fallen from the sky itself in front of the three armies. He did not hesitate, and flew at a speed impossible to follow to where those two were in front of everyone. Azrael had killed Lucifer by piercing his heart, and then killing Elohim himself. It was something that I couldn't understand. Even though he exterminated the vast majority of the demons, even though he was still young after all, when he was still a teenager, he faced darkness alongside Michael, Lucifer, and his father. He faced great wars against other deities, causing great injuries to several of them. He even killed and murdered so many that I couldn't understand how it was possible that he didn't feel something about everything he did over the years. Perhaps empathy, or the synonym of being the angel of death itself, was something inevitable for him. Shitting with so many deaths did not affect him at all. She looked into her younger brother's eyes and saw him well. There was nothing. Azrael, do you feel anything for all the deaths you caused? I had to ask him. I had to find out if he felt strongly about everything he did. I can't, and I hope I don't believe that he did all this without any hidden motive. What a strange question this is. She's never asked me things like this before. I guess this would be inevitable, mate. Drake? What do you mean by inevitable? Sigh, how to say it, after all the many identities you used over the years. The dragon didn't know what to say at this moment. Even I know that I made a lot of chaos in the world, but you caused many great wars, killing even innocent people along the way. But does everything have a purpose or something through it all? No, Azrael? Or did you do all this out of boredom? I never really thought about it. He seriously thought about the words of both and wanted an answer for everything. It was clear that he was the cause of several chaos in the world. It is clear from the deaths he caused through the years. Even to all of this was nothingness itself. I feel no pity and no remorse for my past actions and sins, Drake. I did what I had to do, and I managed to believe something and learn many things in the process. Then his gaze focused on Penemu, while Drake simply sighed again. Penemu. I don't regret everything I did. She nodded, annoyed, but still didn't say anything. I would like to feel something for what I did, but everything. I don't regret even killing everyone, the wars I caused, the deals I used with humanity. I don't even regret killing Father and Lucifer. Why did you leave me alive then? Why didn't you kill me like you did Tamil that time? There was no answer to that question. Even he asked himself the same thing. Why didn't he kill her at that very moment? She was hurt. She was at his mercy. He was even looking at her while she screamed and screamed words of hatred towards him, but still he didn't kill her. I don't really know, I think that myself because I didn't kill you after that. I don't regret killing Tamil and the rest of our brothers, but I never understood why I didn't kill you. Penemu didn't say anything and just stood up and then left there, leaving Issei/Azrael alone, who didn't move from his place. He just let out a sigh and looked at his hands. How strange is it that I have this feeling of discomfort? That was the only thing he asked himself. It had already been a week since Issei's incident with the woman and with Penemu. And with the school issues and the rest, things calmed down while all the students were prepared for the trip to Kyoto. Meanwhile, with the supernatural beings, everything was in order until the next meeting that would put an end to the Nordic factions, something that had Rias and Sona worried. Except for Issei, who was currently sitting quietly playing chess with, and Jacques made Sona senpai. And with a laugh he said this to Sona, who was totally surprised, as was the rest of the student council, who couldn't say a word, while her sister Izumi was the same. By chance, he won a Sona Kaicho. It was the word of the student council members, who didn't know what to say, while the only male member Saji was totally shocked. Fufu, what a surprise. Congratulations, senpai. Work. Congratulations, Haido. These were also the words of the Gremory group, while Issei/Azrael raised his eyebrows in response to this, and then, "Is something wrong, Sona senpai?" I asked while looking at her, who was blushing, while Izumi just sighed and still had a forced smile on her face. "Oni-chan, do you know what you did? I just won one game. What's wrong with that? Here, idiot." Before even being able to continue giving him gifts, the train had suddenly stopped, and then everyone was transported to another place, while Issei/Azrael was left completely alone. "And now? Well, I see you're okay." Issei/Azazel appeared, and then, "Come on, I have something to show you." "Well, DXD, this is the underworld is clearly," Azazel said while he was walking through some mountains being followed by Issei. "We are in the hills and within the Gremory territory." "Gremory? That's right. Searchits gave me this place to see how the young talents of both houses are doing." Searchits, eh? Even saying that name made him feel very uncomfortable. He had no doubt he was someone strong, quite strong. You could tell even with that friendly smile. It was clear that he was not for nothing the current Lucifer of this era. Searchits Lucifer, he is a Gremory, a very weak house compared to the other houses. He is someone so powerful. Well, Searchits has Baal in his blood, and the power to destroy said house. Oh, now I see why it's strong. He is a completely strong existence worldwide. He is a super demon. Believe me, Azrael, currently there are many beings of great power. Even in your current state you would be annihilated. I know. He crossed his arms. I'm not even the same as I was before my death as an angel. Now I only have a little power, but I have Drake. Of course you are the new Red Emperor. Azazel would look at him layers, and with Drake you can be the same and improve to full power. Issei would look at him, and then sigh. Azazel, even in my current state, I highly doubt I'll ever be the same angel I was before. I can barely use a few abilities. My condition is limited with magic. That's why you have Drake. He would look at him. Even if you are not at full power as an angel, you can become the strongest red dragon. I remind you that Vala the white dragon is much stronger than you. You still have a long way to go. What's on your mind? Believe me, you'll like it.
Let me know in the comments below if you guys want the next part. Also check out my other video that has been shown and left. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and share this video. And have a fantastic day. Bye.